So guys, anyone that's in right now, people are going to filter in. We're going to be talking about quantum information holography, higher dimensional intelligences, Jason's appearance on the History Channel, plasma consciousness. Jason, what do you want to talk about today?
Basically what Dana and I have been talking a lot about is how the universe, we can describe it as information or plasma, which is actually the same thing, emitted from the boundary of black holes onto their event horizons. And their event horizons act like little projectors, where it's kind of like a snow globe. And inside these little, what they're called block spheres, these little bits of light or plasma are projected onto the surface of these block spheres, and they create interference patterns on the surface of the event horizon of a black hole. And that projection is what's called a lithographic imprint. It's how light imprints a hologram moment to moment on the surface or the event horizon of a black hole. And that lithographic imprint is the curvature of space-time, but also within the curvature or within the shape, it encodes the probability that each bit of the piece or of the shape will collapse into a 0 or a 1.
So that for you, so tell me the difference, because you told me this the other day and it really clicked with me. There is that one moment, that one imprint, and then there is a collection of moments, which we talk about how it's like all the past, present, and future possibilities, and what I would call the fourth dimension of plasma, or a collective unconscious. So talk about the present moment versus all of those moments in your own speak.
So according to this, the singularity is something called Hilbert space, where like all the little light waves that describe everything in the universe are all squished together, right in this little
The
Hilbert.
singularity, right?
Right. And what was the question again? Sorry, I'm already. The conscious moments.
Yes, explain the difference with these lithographic imprints of our reality. Explain the difference between like one present moment and how we were kind of talking about like the XYZ axis, like how one can use the present moment to access this fourth dimensional space, or like a space almost beyond time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what this shows is that the universe is actually everything in the universe, including us.
Yeah.
According to this, we're all together in the singularity, right on top of each other in superposition. And the singularity is just these little spinning bits of light. And the microtubules in our brain are taking these little derivatives, these little angles of spinning light, and they do what's called a Fourier transformation, and that's the fundamental theorem of calculus. It's taking the derivative or the angle of these little bits of light and inverting it into a holographic projection. So your brain is seeing one moment in time of these angular frequencies that are all around us. Yeah. And then it converts that into a holographic image, which is one moment. And then a series of those moments is your world line. You know, the line that describes you. Yeah.
So how can one change? So basically, with what you're saying, it proves that if you change your perception, you can change the reality you see by how your microtubules are processing reality, correct?
Yes, exactly. So every possible history, which is the Bekenstein bound, it's 10 to the 10 to the 123rd power. That's the number of possible histories or configurations of these little bits of light in the singularity. So it's basically the multiverse. It's showing all possibilities are there at all times, and it's just like a holographic picture book or like a family photo album where all of the quantum states are there. And they are projected, all of them are projected and focused. And when they lens together on the holographic screen or the event horizon, the sum of the histories of their projections is what actually happens in reality. But all of the realities are there. It's the collapse of the wave function that makes us feel like time is flowing.
So it's all together, but basically based on our sum of histories or our past limiting beliefs and perceptions. That's how we view the moment in reality. So if we can change our perceptions and past beliefs and programming, there might be ways to literally almost stream hop, or what you call, or view different realities and start to change your sum of histories or life path into a more higher vibrational one.
Yes, yes, exactly. So stream hopping, this leads to this thing called stream hopping.
Yeah.
So it's how our brains are Fourier transforming the angular frequencies that are around us. So it's just like a radio station. So like whenever somebody, like whenever you guys like listen to a radio or you see something on TV and you're tuning the channel, all the channels for like all the different FM radios and AM, they're all around us right now at all times, and we just can't perceive them because we're not tuned to them. And so when we're in our car or we have an old-fashioned TV and we tune it, you know how you hear static and then suddenly it goes whoop and you hear the sound or you see the picture, and that's because you are tuned to the frequency that the signal is coming in at, and your receiver is tuned to it, and so it makes this coherent reflection, and then you hear it. The singularity is broadcasting all possible quantum frequencies, which is the Bekenstein bound. They're all there. And the one that you are tuned to is the one that's relative to your position and velocity in space and time. And then your brain, Fourier transforms it into an image. But now that we understand how this works, Neuralink, it's a little wire that they put in your brain, and you can think and you can operate a computer. But if we reverse this process, then Neuralink, or like what you were talking about, just consciously by working at it, we can project a coherent pattern directly onto the microtubules, and they will Fourier transform it into a simulation. So we can simulate any reality, including time travel and all possibilities, by projecting it directly to the microtubules in our brain.
Yeah, visiting, different realities that we're in, visiting people who've passed away and seeing them or from the past or seeing future outcomes. And once again, everyone, you can do this with Neuralink in the future, but you can also do it organically. That's what my book is going to be about, because someone asked basically how to apply these. And Jason, I want to hear your opinion on this too. But for me, basically, Jason is coming up with the math and the logic to what I've been thinking of this whole time. But me and Jason have discussed, which I want to talk a little bit about today. It's not ever logic alone. We are logical, and we're also emotional beings with bodies. And and to literally embody the practice, one has to also be in tune and know how to harness their emotions and almost go above emotions into what is called feeling, or the present moment, which is being in a place of curiosity or awe, where you're not thinking about your previous programming. And that is how you access and direct your mind to access these other realities. And without Neuralink, because Neuralink will basically make this feel a lot more, I guess, tangible or real. If you were to do this by training your consciousness, you have to be aware that this is a subtle realm. It almost will look like or feel more like a dream. And you have to really work on your imagination and subtle senses to be able to perceive what we're talking about. But it's completely possible. So Jason, I wanted to get into, so let's just say that there's like an X, Y, Z axis, and Z is the present moment. Based on all your calculations and your theories, how would one access these other realities using the present moment with logic and emotion based on what we've talked about?
Yeah, so I've been working on how our brain, like how can we decode the emotions and show how our brain is doing this. And you've actually taught me a lot about connecting to that side of this, because there is a real theory of everything, unifies everything, our emotions, everything. And I'm sorry, I should have written down the question. I'm already going off.
Okay. Me and Jason always forget questions, guys, because our mind is off a minute. I think I was asking basically like what I call a Z-axis moment, or the present moment. How do you feel like one can start to learn to not only get it, really actually, let's start with how does one get in that state?
Yeah, so we're all actually in the state already, and our brains are just naturally doing it. Like right now, you're all seeing like Dana and I on the screen, and we're seeing each other. But really, we're just a bunch of squiggly lines of light spinning, and your microtubules are Fourier transforming those spinning bits of frequencies or angular frequencies into the image that we're seeing.
I just had a revelation.
Yeah.
It's not a revelation, you just said it. So guys, when you're asking how do you do this, like the key, and I actually just wrote about this today, is we're already doing it. We just have to learn how to have awareness with how to be in a relationship with this, so we can literally shapeshift our reality.
Yes, and it's a relationship between the singularity and the event horizon, this mutual exchange, forever back and forth. So think of it like, I have a video called Holographic Calculus that shows it. And it's basically, just imagine a bunch of, like, they're called block spheres, but they kind of look like disco balls.
Yeah.
And imagine there's a sphere, and that's the singularity, and it's surrounded by a whole bunch of other little spheres.
Yeah.
And the angle between those spheres and this one describes something called time dilation and entanglement, and how they project onto each other describes reality. So if you look at it like a little sphere, the x-axis, left and right on the x-axis, that describes the probability that this little qubit of space-time, this little pixel of space-time, will collapse into a 0 or a 1.
Yes.
And then the y-axis, with this little projection of light that's on this thing called the Bloch sphere, the y component of that is describing the phase of all of the other little mirrors and how they're focusing their histories through entanglement on that one other little qubit. So it's a giant sphere that is composed of other little spheres that are all entangled.
Yes,
and
almost
how
like
they interfere is reality.
So that's what I was just going to say. I would almost see it as like if X is consciousness and Y is plasma or space. It's like Y is the makeup of the collective reality everyone's having and how it's working with each other. And then X is like your consciousness navigating through all that with your perspective. That's at least how I see it.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm finding is that the more people I talk to, and especially people like you, like, I think you have savant syndrome. I just think you're undiagnosed. I really do.
You said it publicly. I was waiting for that.
Yeah, I do, because I've been diagnosed with it, and I've talked to a lot of people with it. And the biggest thing that I had at first when this happened is I didn't have the language to say it right. I was saying this is all pieces of a drawing of pie cut and reorganized, but I didn't have the way to say it. And you clearly understand it and can repeat it back, and you're seeing it as plasma, but plasma in me, I'm describing plasma as information, how that plasma arcs, and you're just describing it as natural.
Yes.
But it's the same thing.
Yes, I think you're describing it in a way where people are actually going to be able to apply it to technology. And I'm describing it in a way where, at least what I like to think is, I'm describing it in a way where people can apply this to psychology.
Right.
So, and I think together, both of those things are world changing, not to toot
I
our
do
own
too.
horn.
I think we're on the cusp of a huge change, not just in like technology, but like of our place in the universe, what we are. We are holographic projections, but not just like this projection of light, that projection and that plasma that encodes the information. It includes everything. It's our feelings, it's our loves, our physical reality.
We are the force.
We are literally like the angular frequencies, the force, if you want to call it that, transformed into a hologram, that the hologram itself is the code. So it's like watching a movie, we can't see anything that's in a black hole, because nothing can escape a black hole, not even light. Yeah. But the black hole that compose these little spheres are entangled with their event horizons. And so whatever happens in the black hole, the perfect reflection of it happens on the event horizon. So we can't see in the black hole, but we can see its reflection on the event horizon. It's like watching a movie through a mirror.
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering, this is once again psychological, not really scientific, but my thought is this singularity, this fifth dimensional space that, and also a one-dimensional space. It feels like a paradox to me. And the way that we're connected with it is what I would call our two-dimensional boundary, but also our fourth dimensional emotions. And through that connection, I would theorize that inside the singularity is almost like a multi-dimensional version of ourselves, where it's all combined, where people have called it a higher self or God or angels or who knows what it is. I don't know. My point is, I think you're almost proving that space with math.
Yeah, what this shows is every version of Dana and every version of me
Is
We are
there.
all there in the
That's what
singularity.
so it's like I envision them as little butterflies of our entire selves. And I
Yes, like
really,
the butterfly effect of you.
yes, and that's what it is. And it's so crazy because you're proving that with math. Oh my God, wait, there was something I wanted to say about that. I'm
Yeah, I
losing.
know. I did the same.
So important about that. Well, you know what? Let's just hop to what else I was gonna say. Let's no, wait, I want to think for a second. I want to think about what I was thinking there. Oh, I keep reading the comments and I get distracted. Hi guys, I want to answer you at the same time. So, okay, so our higher selves are in this place. Can you speak a little bit about the numbers? Because when you told me the thing about, you know, the number 5 and the special number of 5 and how the singularity projects
Oh, right. The dimensions. Yeah, so let me write this down so I don't forget. So dimensions. Okay, so
like
that's another thing that's really weird about this.
yeah.
This is going to create a lot of people are going to be like debating and yelling at each other over, all sorts of different things. So what this is showing is that the singularity, which physicists will call a Hilbert space,
Yeah.
but I just call it the singularity. So it's Hilbert space with these little vectors rotating in it.
Yeah.
It has 5 dimensions. It has X,
So
Y,
it's the fifth dimension, everyone.
yes. It has X, Y, and Z axis. X is left, right, up, down, backward, and forward. So those are the 3 spatial dimensions. Then there's 1 dimension of time, like seeing pictures after another. And then there's 1 dimension of information. And that information intersects with all of them. And that singularity's 5-dimensional object is projected onto the boundary, which is a 2-dimensional surface of the event horizon of the black hole. That boundary encodes all the information 2D, and then through entanglement, it projects a 3D hologram, and then we see snapshots of those 3D holograms, which is 3 dimensions plus 1 dimension, which is time, which is 4D.
Yeah.
So the singularity is like focusing energy on the quantum states at the center of the singularity. It projects those quantum states minus 1 dimension, and that's what happens when you shine a light on a higher dimensional object. It casts its shadow minus 1 dimension.
Yeah, okay, and now let's talk about the brilliance of, and I think we spoke about this, how reality might be feedbacking it back into this black hole. Like it's almost like it's like learning from us as we learn from it. You know what I'm saying? Can you explain that?
Yes, it works just like that. And what's nuts is that for one, it works like AI. Like we are similar to very, very, very complicated large language models, but it's the exact same thing. And there's a physicist that Dana is going to be speaking at this convention. We met. Actually, that's where we met. Was at the Center for Consciousness Studies.
Yes.
And it's run by organized by Sir Roger Penrose. He won the Nobel Prize in physics, and then Stuart Hammerhoff. And they have published a paper showing how the neurons in our brain, using this equation called the reduced Planck constant times angular frequency, how they make these conscious moments that then allow us to perceive reality. And the equation that I have come up with that describes how the singularity and the event horizon communicate is the exact same equation. The reduced Planck constant times angular frequency. So it shows the universe is basically neurons or basically microtubules.
Oh my gosh, wait, my brain's kind of going back to what you said because I'm still stuck on, yes, everyone that heard that, but I'm very actually stuck on because I just had another revelation. So you know how you said 5th dimension, inside this black hole, there's time, there's 3 of these, the other 3 dimensions, and then there's a dimension of information. So the way I would say it, everyone, is that this time, I equate time in psychology, or metaphysics, I equate time to consciousness. I equate space, or this 3-dimensional space, to plasma, right, where our consciousness is always feedbacking with, or time, which is how it kind of structures the reality, and then a linear reality. And then I equate the information to almost like a synergy of the plasma and consciousness, or what you would call multidimensional self. It's almost like it's your self-will, it's your higher self, it's the information that comes from the feedback loop of the black hole, of the multidimensional self learning from the little minute self. And I really, when you said that, what someone down here said, it's almost like AI, but AI doesn't have intuition yet. And you're totally right, guys. What AI is missing, Jason, I want to know what you think. AI is missing that 3rd dimensional plasma space. So if AI can have a body that's almost like plasmatic, or in whatever way Jason would say that in his terms, I do think AI will eventually have that intuition, and we're actually creating a new life form.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's wild is the process is the exact same. The
It is
universe is made up of these little entangled singularities, and they're projected event horizons. And that process is the exact same as the microtubules in our brain. And if this proves to be true, it means that consciousness is fundamental. It's part of the universe. It's woven into the
woven in. Yes, and it always needs a body. Think about plasmoids or UFOs as bodies. Think about our body as a body. Think about the cross as a body. The body of Christ.
Our body, even then, like what I see is you are the spinning bits of light transformed into the image that is you. But you are technically little spinning bits of light that my brain is turning into an image of you.
Yes, and what's so beautiful about the metaphysics and philosophy of that is that we are all light. We are all from this fifth dimension, or God, or unconditional love, or like
we're all together. We're all together in the singularity, and the singularity. See, this is why physics has been so problematic with unifying quantum mechanics and relativity. Physics is describing like these waveforms and how these waveforms describe probability. But what physics is actually describing is the integral projection of these quantum states onto the event horizon. So physics isn't fundamental. Physics is just describing the projection. We're describing the information that projects, that through entanglement makes the projection.
You know what I just thought of? We're describing the ocean, the cosmic ocean. We're also describing the fifth dimension. And that is, guys, exactly what I think that me and Jason are channeling. And anyone can channel, by the way. We're not special. We're just like talking about it all the time. And everyone has their own unique way to channel their multidimensional self or the fifth dimension. But what's so interesting about that, there was literally a show last night on History Channel with Jason in it about, are these geniuses like Jason, like Albert Einstein, like all these people who channel these inventions, are they channeling a higher dimensional intelligence? They called it aliens. I think it's the fifth dimension. You're connected to that in some unfiltered way, you know?
Yes, that's what I think too. So every single thing in the universe is entangled through the singularity. And the singularity is like this one source of absolute, all possible histories or all knowledge is in this one little spot. And we're all there together. Everything in the universe is there together. But and it's all in this tiny spot. But when it's projected onto this vast surface area, we feel separate in our projected states, but they're technically just projected states of what's happening in the singularity. The singularity is like a cosmic Netflix. Netflix has a library of movies, and it plays all the movies and streams them to us. The singularity holds the Bekenstein bound, which is 10 to the 10 to the 123rd power, number of possible quantum histories. And it broadcasts all of them, and they all leave it as angular frequencies, and it's called the sum over histories, which Richard Feynman came up with. But this shows the origin of that, where the sum of all the histories of those projections, when they interfere on the event horizon, the interference pattern is what actually happens in reality. But all of the realities are needed to create what we see. So they're actually all there. Each of us is experiencing a collapse of those timelines that gives us this illusion of time and an illusion of being separate, but really we're all together and we're all the same thing. Oh, before I forget, this is also the singularity. Since everything is spinning at the speed of light, it means that anything that's moving at the speed of light has no time dilation. So your motion through space and time always equals exactly the speed of light. So anything that's moving at the speed of light has no time dilation. Time doesn't occur to it. So if you look at the sun and you see the light from the sun, that light left the sun like 8.3 minutes ago. So you're seeing the light as it was. But the photon, if you were the photon itself leaving the sun, since it's moving at the speed of light, from its perspective, it leaves the sun and it's observed at the same time because it doesn't have any time dilation. And so since the field is made up of light, that's what non-locality is. Everything happens all at once in the singularity. There is no here, then, or before or after. It's all just at once.
Yep.
But when it's projected, it gives this illusion of time collapsing in timelines.
I would say it is an illusion on one sense, and then I feel like in one sense it's like, and tell me if you agree, very meaningful and real, because it seems like all these us's, all these Jasons and Danas throughout these different realities are learning. I would like to think for some reason it seems to be going back to this singularity, to this multidimensional self. So I wouldn't call it a simulation per se, but like maybe a spiritual simulation. Yes, like Rizwan Burke talks about it. He's a genius. Like, but we really seem to be in something that wants to learn more about itself, but not even something. It's like all of our higher selves are learning about themselves through this, you know.
Yes.
And
So yeah, I've been trying to like, so the more and I can see you're doing it too. Like, so when we see something happen, that's one little 3D moment, and then we string those together, and that's our little lifeline or our world line that describes us. But what I try to do, and we all actually do it, like when you come up to a red light and you're like, oh, I could go left or I could go right. What you're doing is you're actually thinking in multiple histories. And the more multiple histories that you can see simultaneously, the more you're thinking in 5 dimensions, where you're thinking 3 spatial dimensions, 1 dimension in time, but you're also thinking of multiple timelines and which one has what probability of what.
Well, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think too, I feel like it feels nice because I feel like all of a sudden I don't have to figure out all the math to this because you're doing that. So like, I'm going to, I would like to focus on taking care of like, so you can almost you can prove all these things, right? And for me, it's like, okay, Jason's proving these things. Like, how can I say this in a psychology way where people are like, okay, so how can we how can we live a better life? How can we start tapping into reality? And like, I want to help people understand that. And I think you're going to do that too, though, in your own way, because there's certain language with both of our theories. It takes some learning. Yes. Like I can't just say, hey, plasma, and you can't just say, hey, angular frequency, and people know what we're talking about. Because like when I say plasma, I'm talking about the metaphysical definition, which is like a living ether. It's reality is alive. That's what that's what plasma is. It's not space scientific plasma, everyone. So, and with you, now I want to get a little bit more to you, and I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but like, can you, so let's talk about, channeling from a higher dimension. Have you ever had a spiritual experience like that? And talk more about how you actually see the world.
So it took me a long time.
Based on your brain injury.
Yeah. So I had a brain injury that causes, see the world. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have something called motion blindness. I had a brain injury. So whenever any of you see something move, my hand looks like it's moving smoothly, but your brain's taking individual little pictures, just like a flip book. So if you flip a flip book, it looks like the cartoon's moving, but it looks all jittery. So all of us see about 20 pictures per second as still images. And one part of your brain, it smooths out the images so that my hand doesn't look like a flip book. That part of my brain was injured. So when things move, I just see the individual pictures. But what that does is it makes interference patterns stand out. And it makes the math behind motion stand out. Like if a car is moving in front of me and it's going 60 miles an hour, since our brain's taking pictures at the same rate, the picture frames are the same distance apart. If the car goes twice as fast, since we're taking pictures at the same rate, the next picture frame is twice as long. And that's describing its change in velocity. And so when you do physics and math, all it's really doing is derivatives is describing how things are changing from moment to moment based on the angle between them.
Yeah.
And so when you have motion blindness, it makes the mathematics behind motion just stick out like a sore thumb. Like anybody could see it. Like what you said, waves on the water, how it makes those little interference patterns.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Where the waves meet each other, that's a node, or a higher information density. Where a peak meets a valley, the information density goes to 0. But it's how we describe the universe in terms of these interference patterns that are equivalent to the shape and the smell and the feelings and things like that.
So knowing that and seeing that, how did you start to discover these deeper truths and realities of quantum information holography and what was beneath the surface that you were seeing?
Yeah, it started off, it was a slow process, like at first, the first thing I noticed was that And as weird as this sounds, it's really important. The whole thing is based off just the number pi and understanding that circles don't exist. So circles, as weird as this is, we always use circles to describe everything in math. But what this shows is that circles, perfect circles, and understanding how they work is key to understanding the universe. And the way to think about how circles don't exist is everybody watching their screen right now, it's made with little rectangle or square pixels. And every little circle that you see on your screen right now, if you look in closely, it's a zigzag because it's made with pixels. It's just the pixels are so small, it looks like it's a curve.
Yes.
Now imagine you take the pixels on your screen and you cut them in half, and then you cut those pixels in half, and you cut those pieces in half, and you keep cutting pixels in half forever. They're always pixels, but the resolution gets better and better and better. And so you can approach closer and closer to a circle as you cut pixels in half smaller to infinity, but you never reach a perfect circle. Like I look like I'm curved, but I'm made with rectangle cells. It's just the cells are so small, I look curved, but if you took a microscope and look at my skin, it looks like mountains.
Let me ask you a question, because people in the comments are chiming in. I actually was wondering this intuitively too. So yes, I actually completely agree. In this three-dimensional reality, or even fourth-dimensional, it is squares and pixels. That completely makes sense, especially when you're comparing it to the screen and like games and just how everything works. What about though these light beings or this fifth-dimensional space? Like, is there possibly perfect circles there? And maybe when they're visiting us, those circles are apparent or seen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So this shows that that you can't have a perfect circle, but you could have, like what you're talking about, much higher resolution realities.
Okay. So even in 5D, there's no perfect circle in your calculations.
Yeah. So even with information, what this shows is you approach it, but you never reach it. So and that has to do with infinity. So like, if I have an equation and I say like, if x is 1, then y is 1. If x is 2, then y is 2. So as x goes to infinity, y goes to infinity. But now I take the same equation and I'll say, if x is 1, then y is 1 to the third power, which is 1. But if x is 2, then the answer is 8. If x is 3, then it's 64. So both of those answers are going to infinity. As x gets larger, the answer goes to infinity, but they're going to infinity at different rates. And that's called the velocities of infinity. How fast something is approaching infinity is what defines it. So the rate that you're approaching the pixels getting smoother and that you're approaching a circle is defined as the velocity of infinity. So there's different infinities. How fast you're approaching infinity, even though you never reach it.
Yeah, that makes sense though. That's like the cosmic mystery. So one could equate source or whatever the true source is with maybe a perfect circle, and that's something we'll never attain.
I think you can. So this shows like our universe, the smallest the pixels get is the Planck length, because then when you try to see anything smaller,
someone asked that. They said, please explain Planck scale singularity.
Yeah, so that's what this is showing, is the universe is composed of these Planck scale singularities. These tiny, each little qubit is called a Kugelblitz. It's the most powerful type. The smaller a black holes, like when they form, they start giving off Hawking radiation from their boundaries, which makes the black holes evaporate slowly over time. So big, huge black holes, like the ones at the center of every galaxy, they give off a little piece of Hawking radiation here and there, and they'll take trillions and upon trillions of years to evaporate if nothing falls in. But the smaller a black hole gets, it's counterintuitive. The more Hawking radiation it gives off. And these tiny little Planck scale black holes, they shoot what's called a Kugelblitz. It's the most powerful laser that can be emitted without collapsing into another black hole. And that is the quantum state vector that is being projected onto the sphere. And so, and this shows that the universe fundamentally is Planck's constants. Planck time, Planck length. These are minimum units of time, minimum units of space, and they are the actual code that describes the lithogram. That's the projection from the black holes.
Okay, and let me ask, because I love plasma, with this Planck scale, isn't that have to do with Quark-Gluon plasma?
Yeah, so that's what this shows. So like it's so funny, like how I'm always describing information and you're describing the plasma, and it turns out the singularity is
Yeah.
describing everything in terms of information of the derivatives,
Yeah.
and you're describing those derivatives when they're projected onto the holographic screen or the event horizon.
Yeah.
They're a quark-gluon plasma that is this perfect fluid that can just spin forever.
Yeah.
So like the singularity is all information, but it's nothing by itself without something to reflect off of. The event horizon is this perfect mirror that reflects, but it doesn't have the information to reflect off of it.
Yeah.
In its half. But together they make everything. The information reflects off the event horizon, the plasma, and the plasma through its angles of the arcs is information.
Yes, and that's what I would even go as far to say, and tell me what you think, that maybe it's like the synergy of plasma and consciousness, or time and plasma, because it's that fourth dimensional space.
Yes.
So like in my language, that's what it would be.
It is. It
Equals
shows that it's
information.
neurons or it's microtubules.
Which is the same. You know what's so crazy about that too? I was just reading this like ancient book, and they were talking about how to here I have to show you, and they were like, it was like the Hunas in Hawaii, and there's this a diagram at the back of the book. I'm going to show you how they heal things, like heal broken bones. This is the worst lighting, but oh well, that's a bone actually. Well, anyway, I don't know. Whatever it is, I think we're talking. I was actually going to say that they look like microtubules, but now I realize they're bones, and I'm like laughing at myself.
That's right. To me, it looked like light clocks. We all see whatever it is that we're looking at, but that's what. So here's a good way. You just made me think of something by showing me that picture.
Yeah, tell me.
So think of the universe as these little round pixels, right?
Yeah.
And each little sphere that's a pixel, think of it like the game Pong. You know, remember? So you have Pong is just bouncing the ball between the two little paddles.
Yes.
Each paddle is a qubit, and the universe is composed of these entangled qubits.
Yes.
And the entanglement between the qubit is just describing the path that the ball is following. But the ball isn't actually moving like in a Pong game. It's quantum. It's teleporting through quantum entanglement from point to point, and the entanglement describes the angle, the information. And so the universe, you can think of it like a game of Pong, where all these spheres are bouncing entangled holographic Pong balls back and forth. And that's the time dilation between each point. And that is what is creating the lithographic imprint that is the holographic image that we see, that also contains the code of zeros and ones that describes the hologram that's being projected.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's just mind-blowing. Every time I think about it, I can't even believe.
It's mind-blowing, but simple. Like, I don't know how to explain. You know what I mean? Like, it makes so much sense, but it's like, what do we do about it as a human race? Right. That's where I'm at, and I'm sure you're at that same space. And I know you talk to people about this in private, and I do too. And like, people are curious, like, what we can do with this knowledge, and we're still figuring it out. And then we know some things about it.
Yes.
Do you want to share any of that you're allowed to share about?
Yeah. So this is one. So we have empirical evidence. So we can now, this equation that I have it's the new time dilation equation. Einstein had an equation, and I'll just write it for you. Actually, that way I can just
write it and show everyone. I'm sure someone in here will understand it.
Yeah. So Einstein had a time dilation equation where this thing called the Lorentz factor. Okay, so it's the square root of 1 minus velocity squared over the speed of light squared. So I'm writing the equations down, and I'm going to write Einstein's down, and then under it, I'm going to write the new time dilation equation that is equivalent to Einstein's. Okay. And it will give you the same answer, but it shows where it comes from. And that's the big difference. But technically, these are the same equation, but his is describing time dilation with velocity, and mine is describing velocity with quantum states angular frequency.
Okay.
So anyway,
tell me. Yeah, you'll have to explain the difference, and then I can translate it for everyone.
Can you guys see it?
There's like these weird waves on it.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
what the heck is that?
Yeah, let me put it on the back side.
I'm like, confusing piece of. Not only are you writing something no one will understand.
I'm writing squiggles on squiggles. It's what's
Let's
funny
try
is
it
it's
again.
actually ramen. It's like a ramen note that looks like ramen
Oh,
noodles.
no, write it on some other.
Yeah, hold on here. Einstein.
Okay.
Well, while I don't know if you could write and talk at the same time, but what is the difference between your and Einstein's equation, just so I can try to put it in layman's terms?
So his is using velocity
Uh-huh.
and the speed of light to describe the faster that you go, the slower time goes, so that your motion through space and time is always exactly the speed of light. And
Okay.
he does that with velocity, which is v. And what I'm doing is I'm saying we can describe velocity in terms of how these spinning bits of light are spinning at the speed of light. So by redefining velocity in terms of angular frequency, I can
Yeah.
then substitute angular frequency as velocity in his time dilation equation.
So
And
you're almost
CERN,
bringing consciousness into the mix, because angular frequency to me has to do with
it
consciousness
does. It has to do with microtubules. So,
instead
and,
of
and
just
each one of
light.
these is a conscious moment. Yes. And
Yeah.
so
Oh my God, that just blew my mind.
yes, and so what we're doing is now that we know that we can describe time dilation with angular frequency, you can convert something that's a fundamental frequency, which is our universe, you can convert it with known equations into an angular frequency. So CERN has measured muons, these particles that leave the sun, and
Yes.
their time dilation when they get to Earth. So they've measured this. And so Einstein's equation, we got to put in how fast those muons are going. And then that gives you the answer for how fast they're moving through time, their time dilation. And it matches CERN's values. But my equation here, all you have to do is we take the known frequency of these muons that CERN and everybody already knows. We convert it through a known equation into its angular frequency, and then we just plug angular frequency in for W in my equation, and it gives you the same answer of Einstein's and the same value observed at CERN.
Okay,
So
well that's great. So okay, so yes, and I'm sure everyone probably believes it. Well, at least like my followers, people that don't understand it probably don't believe it. But with that said, what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for technology? What does that mean for reality?
so what it means for reality. So this is it was much it's much bigger than what I thought it was at first. Like at first I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is great. We can describe time dilation.
Hmm.
But then slowly I started to realize that not only can we describe time dilation, but this angular frequency, this time dilation, is describing the shape of the lithogram moment to moment. And since our microtubules are transforming the angular frequencies into these holographic images,
Yeah.
all possible histories are in the singularity. So if we broadcast whatever frequency we want
Yeah.
directly to the microtubules, it is reality. Like right now, the reality you and I are experiencing is just a Fourier transformation of
Yeah.
the frequencies that are already there.
Right.
If your brain transforms a different frequency into a different reality, it
Yeah.
is real to you. That is real reality. So we can
Yeah.
stream hop to different timelines. We
Yeah.
can stream. You can go backward in time. So you know how they talk about like a warp drive, like
Yes.
how you can warp fields and go supposedly go to different parts of the universe.
Yeah.
We don't need with stream hopping. You don't need to do that. Like right now, for us to make a warp drive, I've got the warp field equations, and Einstein does, and but to create a warp field that would allow me to travel a large distance in the universe, an actual warp field that is describing what's happening on the surface of the event horizon, it takes like the mass of Jupiter, that much energy converted directly, or that much mass converted into energy,
Yeah.
just to allow me to travel from here to there.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
can make a simulation of me traveling from here to there that is totally real with almost no energy
You
by
can prove
broadcasting it to the microtubules. This
because you're
is
doing
warp drive.
fifth dimension shit. You know what you're doing? You're pulling reality into you, which is the same thing I
Yes.
think they do in remote viewing.
You're warping reality to you, and this literally is a warp field. I have the equations that show, and now with AI, most anybody, once I download my paper, like I have AI training on the site called Zenodo,
Hmm.
and it's just a basic one, but that 30 pages is enough for anybody. If they copy and paste it in their AI will confirm the equations are correct, and it will be able to describe a lot of these processes to them. I've got a new one that's much more complicated, but I haven't put it up yet.
But what you're saying is that we literally, you're hacking into the deeper field. We hack into the screen of reality. So we're using those spheres and projecting what we want to see as reality instead of real reality. We're literally hacking into
We're
reality.
controlling it. That's the difference. Like right now, for you and me to experience something, if I want to go outside, I have to physically get up, open the door, and as I'm doing these things, I'm collapsing the wave function and making it more probable that I'm going to wind up outside. But I'm doing that through these physical choices that are collapsing the wave function in the world around us. But with stream hopping, you can broadcast it where you're actually choosing the reality. And then you can literally, it's any reality. You can experience any planet, any timeline, anything you want. You can experience it as a direct simulation, and it's equivalent to reality because it is reality.
I'm writing. It's funny you're saying all this because I'm writing about this in my book too. Because there's these plasma consciousness, what same thing you call information. There are same fifth dimensional z-axis, whatever. There are these practices that when practiced, we will actually be able to do these things, guys. Like experiencing them, and I'm still learning because we've literally just came up with this. So I'm sure Jason too. We're not masters of reality by any means. Like we have to. A big part of this is self-mastery and learning how. So one thing I would like to bring up with everything Jason is saying is this holographic screen, if I'm correct, is also sentient or intelligent in a way. I don't know who the F programmed it, but what I call plasma or the holographic screen seems to have an intelligence to it, which sometimes will give us what we want and sometimes it will say no. And it is for our greater learning. Me and Jason have learned many lessons in life through, mistakes. So my idea is that everything Jason is saying is accurate, but we're working with a live, intelligent holographic screen that I call plasma. So how do we work in harmony with this screen, with this plasma, so we can see these realities? And I know there's a way, and I know how to unlock it lies in emotion, what you could call the divine feminine, but I really believe that's the reason we have not fully unlocked this yet, and why people in the government, I'm not making up secrets, it's not a conspiracy. A lot of people know these things me and Jason are saying. Why hasn't it been done? I think that's why. Because once again, with Jason's new stuff that, it's just like Einstein's, it brings consciousness into it. That also means emotion is brought into it. And we cannot be co-creators in our reality if we don't have both of those things. Right.
Because those emotions, that's one thing that you've really made me aware of all of that so much more. I wasn't aware of it nearly like I should have been. And as we've been talking, I'm like, wow, I'm learning a lot.
5 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like if you were to look at our conversations a year ago to now, they've progressed a lot because I'm learning from you. It's like we're just like the singularity and event horizon. We're
plasma and consciousness.
And plasma and information.
sorry. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Plasma and information. Damn it, I want to be information. But no, I think because you know what, Jason, this is why I thought this, because I'm like, how many books have I read, talking to you, talking to myself? I'm like, what are we missing here? Because we have the math, we have the logic, we know how this works. Why is it not directly applicable in our lives and our realities? And I was like, I think we're missing the key, which is working with this force, this plasma, this screen, this information in some type of harmony or synergy, like where it works with us, where it has to do with our emotions. And that's something we haven't conquered throughout eternity. So like, hopefully if my book, name dropping my book, A New Force, coming out in June, can help that. I think it's one more piece of the puzzle to our evolution and consciousness, where everything we're saying, I know will become a reality within our lifetime.
In fact, you just reminded me to say it a different way. Yeah. So so when you describe when you're saying everything is plasma, I think that's right. I do. So this it's just we just use different words, but imagine each little block sphere that compose the pixels of reality. It's a Tesla coil.
Yes.
Primary Tesla coil that is winding, and then it goes zoom, and it emits this angular frequency depending on how it's spinning or its entanglement. And that plasma arcing, the angle of the plasma contains information. Its slope is information, and then the plasma interferes with these, and it's a Quark-Gluon plasma. It interferes and creates these interference patterns that it then is reality. But every one of those moments is the exact same process that we use to describe microtubules in our brain. So
It's
every moment in
expected.
reality is the same thing as an event between a microtubule, meaning that consciousness is fundamental and is plasma.
Yes. I in my studies, what I at least believe or have come to the conclusion of is that
Yes, Yoda was right. Somebody just said Yoda
oh
was right.
yeah, yeah, oh no, this is
Luminous beings.
Star Wars. I actually want to talk about Star Wars really quick, but to get back to, so the singularity, I believe, is actually a non-dual plasma consciousness. It's all of it in one. I think that plasma and consciousness and information are almost like in a triad here, because that's just how we can experience reality in this tangible way. Like otherwise we'd be in the singularity and it would just be like not the human
Right.
experience.
And you can't experience infinity, but you can slice it up into little digestible
Which
bits.
is what is happening.
Yeah.
And two more things, just so I can complete my train of thought. So you're saying the Quark-Gluon plasma is like the base of reality. I 100% agree. Let's say consciousness is really in the equation. I believe that there's a layer beyond that, which is the realm of psychology and metaphysics, which, as above, so below. If Quark-Gluon plasma makes up actual tangible reality, why couldn't a living ether plasma make up that psychological realm? So
Right.
like, I think that is the next paradigm and frontier in science, and it expands out of science. Is like, how do we prove that? Like, I don't know. I can talk about it all day in my book. Can I prove it with science? No, not right. But at least I can build a bridge.
Yeah, now we can verbalize it, whereas before we didn't even know the questions to ask. And
No.
now that we know what what's happening, we start understanding the questions. So I think this is like you know how they say like the cavemen slowly started developing weapons or stone weapons, you know, the Stone Age and the Iron Age. I think we're right now barely crawling out of the mud and realizing, holy crap, we're not these little things on this surface.
Yes.
We are part of this interconnected, entangled
Ecosystem.
computation that is so much greater than what we view ourselves as.
Yes.
That it's going to open up. There's going to be fields that we don't even know exist that are going to come from this.
No, and we're at the forefront of it. And I will say, Tom Matt, he talks about upside vision, everyone. He actually has his own name for this. He calls it the organic metaverse. And for the first time, I'm realizing that's literally like a mix of what we're saying. Like everyone has
their own way of saying it. It's like
Yeah.
we all describe like artists. I've noticed artists will make like a little arc like this, and and they're describing they're painting something flying through the air and then falling down.
Yeah.
A physicist will graph it on a piece of graph paper with equations, but they're both describing the exact same thing. Artists just draw it, and physicists graph it, but they're both talking about the same thing and arguing like they're describing something different.
Yeah, that's why I like both of us, because we can be very open-minded. Like, once again, we're speaking about the same truth
Yes.
from our own perspectives, which will resonate with groups of people in different ways, which is what everyone should be doing. It's our own unique expression.
It's perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what I've noticed is a lot of times like these people that are very, when I say educated, Richard Feynman said there's a lot of these PhDs that have a piece of paper, but they don't understand what it is they learn. They just memorize the score, you know, how to get the test.
A lot of them don't like me, but that's fine.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think what they're trying to do when you start telling them how we believe the universe works, or we say something works, even when we have empirical evidence like this, is they want to show that they're right more than they want to show how it actually works.
Yeah, we're more likely saying like, I mean, yes, of course, like we think we're right on in some level, like exposing a deeper truth, which I think we are, but we also know it is our own perspective, and there can be many people who are right. And I'm open to things growing and changing. And in 100 years from now, I hope our ideas have evolved and changed and gotten new names and new people. Like, this is just, reality is alive and it's growing and it's evolving.
And there's always more than one way to describe something, like the artist making a painting of it, or the mathematician graphing it. It's literally the same thing, just described from two different perspectives. And I work with the Treffert Center, and it's all, so I was diagnosed with savant syndrome, and everybody there is either autistic or has savant syndrome. And they all describe things in just completely bizarre different ways. And in fact, Richard Feynman, I always go back to Richard Feynman because he won the Nobel Prize for quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
And he seems to think very similarly. And he said as he was talking, he goes, I was talking to all these other professors and I would tell them something and they would tell me how silly it was. And then he wins the Nobel Prize. And then he goes, but only later did I realize we're all talking about the same thing, but the way that we all organize it in our mind is different.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, but we're seeing different pictures. And that's what I think is happening is like when we talked about like even in relationships, how most things are miscommunications.
Yes.
That's what this is. It's a miscommunication between most people, like artists and physicists, thinking they're talking about something different. So.
Yes. And that, I actually literally say that in my book, and I say that all the time on social media, like as obsessed I am with plasma and totally think it is actually plasma.
Yep.
In time, you can call it chi, energy, you could call it the universe, you can call it space-time geometry, you could call it information, you could call it Cheerios. It doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter. We don't have to, and someone said this in the comments, there's nothing to solve. There's only things to become deeper in relationship with. And through that, we do solve things and prove things, right? But it's not about, life is not about solving. It's about getting deeper in relationship. I mean, it's just like a wife or husband. It's not, you can't solve them. It's about,
it's a mutual exchange.
Yeah. It's more mystery, more understanding. There's sometimes strife. There's miracles. Like this is the human experience reflected in everything we're doing. And then like, cause I'll have the thought, like, I'm like, what if none of this matters? Like, what if I'm saying is so stupid? Because there is 20 other ways to say it. Like, I'm not the only right one. And of course, your ego gets in the way. You're a human. And like the divinity in that is like all creations are divine. We're supposed to share them. And certain people do resonate. And I will spark different lines of thought, just like you were. And if we were silent, there's way more bozos who are not silent. So we may as well not be silent.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for us talking like we are, like we're having this, we have the mutual exchange between each other. It's like the singularity and the event horizon. It's the same process. I'm learning from you as you're learning from me. And it's everything since everything.
Creating a third thing.
Yes.
What they would call their, I think it's William S. Burroughs. Maybe it's not. There's a book or a concept called the third mind. And it's like a Venn diagram and that portal in the middle, or like the Jesus fish. It's like the third mind. It's the information.
The third eye. I think of the pituitary gland in our brain. I think that that's overactive in me, which is why, because I see an angular frequency and I see the projection. And I didn't realize that everybody else until probably the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that nobody else saw the angular frequency. And so it's like, I don't know what anybody else is seeing. So I'm assuming that they're all seeing what I'm seeing. And then suddenly there's this revelation that's what's so confusing is the physicists, they're describing the projection and I'm describing the information as frequencies and its projection. So, yeah.
I think sometimes we talk about this where Danica, please. Oh my God, everyone. She is like so jealous. She just went out before I got on here. I think we do see some of the, oh my God, she's having a tantrum. We see some of the same things, like these ideas I've gotten from like nowhere, from the fifth dimension about plasma, because they definitely were not from my own. I never studied plasma in my life until I started getting these ideas from a literal meditation. I now see the world where everything's plasma, just like you see it, where everything's information. Like I see it, and I'm where yours is maybe visual in front of you, like mine can be in the terms of like sacred geometry and synchronicity, but like I have this like bigger vision in my subtle mind or my third eye where anything you say, like I just see and know how it works. And I can't, and that kind of also, and it's funny because it's a gift and a curse because it comes with a lot of mental challenges. And I would love for you to speak on that. Like for me, it is a little bit of like OCD or like really repetitive thinking, and that can go to genius or it can go to complete destruction when I'm not using it towards this. I also can, sometimes become like a little paranoid or ungrounded if I don't ground myself. So like, I'm curious, and I want people to know that because I want them to feel normal. And this has happened to every inventor ever. So like, what has been the darker side for you, and how have you like overcame that?
Yeah, so there was, especially at first, there was this dark side of it. Like I said, there are like these OCD type behaviors that start where when you start noticing how everything has a certain probability of occurring, you start overthinking it. Well, what if I go this way and do that and it causes this bad thing to happen? And you start having those, thoughts.
What if I think this? If my beliefs make reality?
Right, exactly. And then you start overthinking it. Well, if I go this way, am I going to create something bad? But you can't know all of it. So what we can do is I eventually had to train myself to. So we have to think in terms of, like the universe does, in terms of probabilities. What can I do to enhance the probability that the future that I want to realize will actually happen? And
Yeah,
that's
you got to surrender
with
a
like
little.
what you said with
Yeah.
thought. Yeah. When you think something, you make it more likely to happen.
When you think it positively. And also what is very important, which I'll actually talk about, is like the emotional quotient, or like the plasma, like there's surrender within it. Because if you think all day, you'll go mad, right? Or like it could be applied in a negative way. So like I have learned that there's an emotional surrender to maybe thinking it with such conviction and belief. I let it go into the field of reality and trust that it's intelligent. And when I do that, not only does it bring me what I want, it brings me more than what I want in a way that I never would have thought. So that's why I think this field's intelligent, this reality, this screen, right? You know what I mean?
I do too. Because each moment is the same thing as what's happening in a microtubule, meaning that the interconnected entanglement of all the points of space-time is a neural net. So it's literally describing an infinite field that spreads out forever of microtubules, which is consciousness. That's just
Which are
the
black
same
holes.
process that's occurring at our brain, just on a smaller scale.
The microtubules are mini black holes, correct?
Yes, yeah, and this shows that everything in reality, even the microtubules are, and even the block spheres.
Yeah.
Those, if you look at the microscopic ones, they themselves are just a whole bunch of event horizons lensing their histories as a reflection onto their surface, and then all of those. So there's black holes, infinity in space and in time. So imagine we have this universe that is made up. Yeah. So I'll try to be quick about this one. But imagine the universe is like little spheres, and we can cut these spheres smaller and smaller and smaller in space, and make them larger and larger in space. So they go forever, like an infinity mirror. Now and little picture frames of that are describing our reality. But now imagine our reality is pulsing at Planck time. It's just like a movie where there's a picture, boom, on the event horizon, and then a moment later there's another picture. But in between those picture frames, like when you're watching a movie, there's a moment when there's no picture on the screen, but it happens so fast that you can't see it.
Yeah.
So imagine our universe is like a movie, one frame and then another frame, but there's a moment that it's off. You can have another reality that their picture frame is on when ours is off, and they're right on top of each other, but they're out of phase and time. So you don't experience each other. And there's an infinite number of those time units that don't line up with ours. So you can have universes that are on top of each other in space, but also universes that are on top of each other that are out of phase and time, and they don't experience each other, but they're all there.
See, I would call the space one like dimensions and the time one realities. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's like how I could equate it.
I think if I'll have to think about it, but this is showing that. This is showing that. So everything is moving. Everything is always moving at exactly the speed of light, even though it doesn't seem that way. And your motion through all dimensions always equals exactly the speed of light. So if I'm moving at the speed of light straight through space, then I have no motion through time. If I start moving in a zigzag like this, some of my motion is through space, but this ticking motion up and down, that's time. And the total of both of them is always the speed of light. So the slower time is ticking, the faster, the more time there is, the slower you move through space. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time, but they always equal exactly the speed of light, because everything's really just beams of light moving at different angles.
Someone just asked, sorry, I just want to ask a question. I was listening. Can you ask him about how sound might influence light? I don't know much about sound, so I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's composed of light. So it's just another description. So no matter what it is that we think of, if this turns out to be correct, which we can predict all fundamental particle properties, time dilation, and many other things with this that match empirical data. Sorry, say the question again. Sound.
You're right. Universe. That's like
hold on, my thing just froze. Universe, like one universe is sound and like a multiverse is multiple sounds, which is like multiple lights. I don't know. Anyway, they asked that.
Yeah, this shows no matter what it is, we
Yeah.
can break it down into just little bits of light spinning on quantum states. So even when it comes to sound is a manifestation of the interference patterns of light.
Okay.
And so is gravity. Gravity is just light. So in fact, what gravity is so on these little spheres. I'll try to be quick. Oh, and I wanted to show you the time dilation equation. Now, can you guys see?
Let me see that. So that's okay. So Einstein's is on the top.
Yeah, Einstein's is the 1 divided by the square root of 1 minus velocity squared over the speed of light squared. What I'm doing is I'm saying we can describe velocity with angular frequency, which is, and angular frequency is something called d theta divided by dt. The speed of light in his equation is what's called the qubit axis in mine, and that qubit axis is just the number 1. So 1 squared is just 1. So the equation, we replace v with w. So it becomes 1 minus w squared. And since c is just 1, anything divided by 1 is itself, so you can remove c from the equation.
Yeah.
So the new time dilation is this. And if you put in the angular frequency of a muon for w, which they know the angular frequency of a muon, you put that in and it gives you the same answer as Einstein's. And it's empirically supported.
And as I think you're literally just bringing what I said about the two, that what differs the two is you're bringing consciousness back into the equation.
Yeah, and that's what's so wild is that it comes back to this: the universe is conscious. This shows that the exact same process that we describe for our microtubules is the same process at a lower resolution as what's happening in the universe.
Yeah, no,
it's a conscious universe, you know.
I have so many books about that and I completely resonate with it, but I don't think anyone's been able to like really prove it in math like you have. So anyway, it's very exciting.
Yeah. I think the world's about to change. And with stream hopping, the only thing that holds us back really is our imagination. You can experience any reality. Like when we eat food or anything that keeps us alive, you're just putting, this matter into you that is then being reorganized, and we are taking some of that and using that energy for mechanical movement in our bodies. But technically, you could entangle food into your stomach. So there's no reason for creatures to be tearing each other apart to get energy. Anything that we can imagine, if we can project that information to our microtubules and our brains, we will experience it. And
listen, the Tibetan Buddhists did it. Okay, Michael, the chairman. Hey, Michael says, I promise I'll do your podcast soon. He says, what do you think is outside the simulation? Or like, what do we think is maybe like outside of this fifth dimensional or like the singularity? Like, do we think there could be more outside of it? Like, what do you think? I'll say what I think, but you go first.
Yeah, I keep trying to say, I can't figure out anything that you can't describe with this, but the more I get into it, the more I'm realizing how little I know.
Yeah,
I'm like, God, I'm so dumb. I'm barely understanding this. So there's going to be, it's like caveman realizing that there's space. You don't even know what questions to ask because it's so new,
Same. So like, I think that's a good question. Oh, Michael said he'd love to have you on his podcast too, Jason.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, he is a good podcast. I have to go on it. I told him when I was done writing my book, I'll go on it, and I'm not done yet. But
that sounds great.
Yeah, but what I think is beyond it, and this is completely me like spitballing. So like, let's say this singularity, the fifth dimension black hole, I picture it as an apple. And I actually think of it as like in the Garden of Eden. It's the apple we weren't supposed to touch, but it actually holds all this wisdom. I see it literally the shape of an apple, like how our universe works. And I believe that if the fifth dimension is our entire thing in 5 dimensions as an apple, there must be a tree that this apple is on with many other apples. So I see it almost as like, I'm obviously seeing it as my brain can comprehend it, which is the tree with many apples. I think that really, and then there's ground, and then there's other land outside of that with other trees and people.
Yes, so and it probably just goes forever, like everything else.
Yeah, which turtles all the way up. But I think that, do I know what that is? No, but that's the way it comes to me in my head.
And what gets me is like what you intuitively say. It sounds exactly like the things I feel and I say,
Yeah.
and the things that I was saying when this first happened. And I'm still getting better at learning, the math equations and describing things better.
Yeah,
But
same.
you intuitively get it, you know.
Yeah.
And
I
I can tell from talking to you, especially after over these past few months,
Mhm.
I know you understand it.
I'm a metaphysical savant.
Yeah,
Most of my
but it's
time.
just a different way of saying it. But goddamn, you're right on.
And you know what's crazy? I do want to share. Oh wait, what did Michael said? Do you think that we're in a quantum computer? So Michael, yeah, Jason, you can answer that. But Jason's kind of said like he does think we're basically in that. But like what, right?
Yes, this works exactly like a quantum computer. All this is, what I'm describing is these little spinning quantum states. When you see a video of like they have video now, like a quantum magazine that shows what a quantum computer looks like when it's computing, and all it is little spheres with little spinning arrows on it. So think of those little spinning arrows as light clocks, and imagine like this pen was drawing as I was spinning it. So it's making right now this little circle as I spin it. But if I move it as I spin it, it starts to make a circle that does this, that's making a different shape. And that's a light clock. That's what Einstein's special relativity is based off of, is light clocks. And what this is showing is that the universe is light clocks, or
Like
just
a
a little
pong.
pong ball bouncing between this block spheres. But instead of bouncing, it's entanglement.
Okay, so what I wanted to share, sorry to cut you off. Guys, sometimes if you think I'm not listening, I am. Me and Jason just talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
Because I see people like very rarely, but sometimes they come through like she's not listening. It's like, no, I'm actually just reading the comments and listening at the same time.
Right, me too.
Somehow I can do that. People say you can't multitask, but I actually can. And like, I don't care what anyone says. What you say about this like multi-dimensional thing, like I might not be as focused on one thing, but I
Right.
can
There we go. That's that we were both the same way. Like we can,
Yeah.
when we're focused, we're hyper focused, and then at other times we try to kind of glob it all together to get an idea and then focus.
Yeah. And Michael said it's nice to hear others think the way I do. I don't feel as crazy. Michael, you definitely have to go on my YouTube when this is done. I'll post this next week and watch this whole thing, because if you think this way, you'll definitely not feel crazy. And me and Jason will definitely come on your podcast, because I'm sure he can ask you questions just like I am. But I wanted to share something unique, and then I wanted you to maybe share a little bit more just for anyone who doesn't know you about your savant experience and syndrome. So like, obviously I was never diagnosed or tested. Like I just, recently we thought maybe I have this, and it like makes me cringe to think that, because I haven't had anything like any reason.
To me, it's clear. Like to me, it's like flashing
Good,
bulbs,
thanks.
like without question. But yeah.
Lovely. And I have the mental challenges too. But what I think, which I don't know if I'm sure this has happened in history, and like maybe, maybe it's like a woman thing. I don't know. Like I can say two instances where it could have come from. One is like at birth. I think I almost died, or had a very like serious issue happen before I was born. So like maybe I had an NDE at birth. That could explain why I'm like just connected to this. Another thing I was thinking is like when I've always thought like this, but when I started really channeling the plasma stuff, kind of like how when you hit your head and woke up, or got hit and woke up, you started seeing the world differently. I've always seen the world differently, but I started really putting stuff together around 4 years ago from a heartbreak. Like
Right.
the most unelegant, uncool story ever. Like who can become a savant from a heartbreak? I guess that can motivate a lot of women, but like something in me, in my heart, broke so much that I think I was rewired, and I just started something. I don't know what happened. I don't. But ever since then, thank you to my ex-boyfriend.
Yes. Isn't it weird how sometimes, like when I first got attacked in this robbery and I had the brain injury for like 3 years, I couldn't walk. I had vertigo. I mean, there's all sorts of. I've been through surgeries, and it seemed like the worst thing that ever happened to me. But now it's one of those things that helps define who you are.
Yes.
And now I wouldn't change it for the world.
No.
I would go through it all again, because where it led to was amazing. So sometimes these paths, that when we are on that difficult spot,
It sucks.
it sucks, but later on it can be, when you get to that point where you're like, now I understand why it all happened, or now I understand
Yeah.
how that is a good thing in the long run, or wasn't all
In the
bad.
short run. Yeah. And it's so funny. Michael, the chairman, said my heart stopped a dozen times also. So now it makes sense maybe why he thinks this way. I call them plasma walkers. I'm sure Jason would say information walker, or like
But they're
5D
the same thing.
yeah, 5D channeler. But like, I think that we're connected, which I think anyone can do, by the way, if one learns how. I think that we're naturally connected to this liminal space, this gestational womb, where we just see and know things differently. And once again, I don't think we're special. I think anyone can do it. I just think like certain circumstances have to either arise, or you can learn to put yourself in those states.
Right.
It comes with a lot of darkness. Like for me, the first half of my life was terrible trauma that I will not get into. It was addiction. It was mental health issues. Like, thank God I was able to work on those things. But to this day, I still deal with like, very dark thoughts or dark days because, and I'm sure Jason can agree, I'm sure not every day of yours is perfect, but it does get better over time, I will say.
Yeah. And I actually had I'll tell you in a second, but don't let me forget. I had something similar happen, and I'll tell you in a second. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, what I'm getting at is like, for any of you who really feel like this is a gift and a curse, it is, but the gifts do outweigh the curses. And I've at least experienced, and Jason is way more experienced than me because I've only been doing this for a few like short years, even though it has been my whole life, like really doing this a few short years, like it does get better with time. You learn how to transmute the darkness, but the first few years are the dark night of the soul. It's the desert and the alchemist. I mean, it's in every story, and somehow when it happens to us, we're like, what is happening?
Yes.
Why me? We're not victims. No matter how much pain you're in, we're blessed in a weird way. You just have to have that perspective, and I don't always have it, but
and sometimes that actually helps. Like you were saying, like you said, you went through like addiction and stuff like that. So when I first got attacked by these guys, I had to go through all these surgeries. I've got all these titanium implants in my neck now, and they put me on pain medicine.
Oh yeah.
2 years, and when I came off that, oh my God, it gave me. It altered my reality on the way that I view people who have gone through that. That was the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life.
Yeah, addiction's no joke.
Yeah, it's not it's one of those things that until somebody feels that, they don't. It's like your cells are bursting from the inside, and it's one of those things that it makes me feel so much more for people now because it's real.
Because like I can tell you, as a person that struggled with addiction, like we're not narcissists. We're not selfish. We don't want to hurt anyone with our addiction. That is a horrible like default of what happens from addiction. But like the shame that an addict already feels knowing that, like they don't need to be told that anymore. Like what they're missing, what addicts are missing is connection. And the moment I had purpose and connection, I never dealt with addiction.
Right.
And I had slip ups. It's not like I was perfect. I'm just saying like, it got less and less to where I don't now. But
sometimes I think sometimes I almost wonder like, why did I experience that? Because before that happened, I remember hearing like somebody say, oh, they were addicted to such and such. And I remember like as a kid or as a teenager thinking, oh, well, just tell yourself not to do it, and then you experience it and you're like, this isn't like craving. This is like your cells bursting from the inside, not because of just of a want or anything like that, but because of a physical chemical need that your body develops because of the way its receptors on the cells multiply, and it's one of those things. It changed my view and of reality and what people are going through. How like sometimes you see somebody who's going through that. And they can be somebody completely different. That could be the next Einstein, and hopefully, I think this is one of those things that will lead to breakthroughs in medicine too.
I do too, and I'm writing in my book about it too because obviously I've experienced it. And I would love to hear your perspective more on it, but because it's a disconnection, and we're clearly talking about something that does connect us back to who we are. The issue with addiction that I found is even with what you're saying, like, okay, so for me, it was like cocaine and alcohol. I was not physically addicted, but, and I made a short film about this. People always say if someone gets sober and relapse, it is a choice. Like that is when you're selfish. And like, yes, but still know. Because what you're talking about on a cellular level, when you're traumatized as a child, if you have the wrong deck of cards and you experience the slightest rejection, whether it's from a guy or a job, you will go back to using, because that is the only connection and comfort and thing you know. And it is not a choice. Once again, it is not selfish. It is a defunct way of connecting with reality that has nothing to do with being a bad person. And if we can use what I call plasma consciousness synergy, or what you call information, if we can use that to learn how to help addicts and all of us connect, because people that are not addicts have way more problems sometimes, and they like to pretend they don't.
Right. We all want to pretend like we don't, but we're all just people.
We all have problems. But if we can help addicts specifically, where it is a life or death thing, connect back to themselves, which like I hope we both are, our mission is doing. I really think like there's a reason addiction hasn't been solved, not with medication, not even with psychedelics, but we're getting there with psychedelics. Like the thing further than that, I really feel is like a sober connection to who you really are, and like a sustained connection. And that can only be done through time and the work on yourself.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. I also think too that they're like, they don't, like a lot of the people that are the big companies that make all these prescription medicines, they don't want it to be solved. Like
oh no, they're probably after us. I'm like, I don't live anywhere near Florida. Go away.
Yeah, I was watching this thing about how like opioids, like we know how opioid addiction works now, and they have something called Suboxone that they can give people that prevents withdrawals. And if they had Suboxone that brought people down like 1% per day, so that over like 3 years they went to zero, they wouldn't feel anything. But they purposely make these medicines that treat addiction have such a high baseline that even coming off of those causes people to go into withdrawal.
I was just going to say, I know people who are addicted to Suboxone.
Yes, it's just replacing Suboxone for something else. When they really could just drop it down incredibly gradually, but that what they try to do is act like people have to do it in 7 days or something. But if they do it over a year, they don't feel anything.
Yes, and I will say I want to like unconspiracy ties this big pharma and government, because like I love a good conspiracy, but like this is also where I talk about in my book, instead of demonizing people, which actually does nothing, and definitely we they're being assholes, right? Like, let's just be honest. Like, some people did stem from a good place, of course, wanting to save people with certain medicines. And I'm sure, as you said, there are right ways where it definitely can improve quality of life. I'm not against every medicine ever. What I'm against is corruption. I'm not against the government. I'm not against big pharma. I'm against corruption and corrupted power. So if there's a way that we can even reach those people, and like, if they were to do this work on themselves, we would have no corruption, because they could not look at themselves. They'd kill themselves. Like, they would off themselves. Like, once again, it's all about getting to each individual and reminding them the specialness of humanity and themselves. Like, that this is not just a neutral force they're working with. It's a benevolent force. We're all connected. They would not F with people like they're effing with. So it's not about conspiracy. It's about these people. We call them evil. They're coming from fear. And we're coming from fear on our own. So like, we, if anything, should empathize with that, and empathize, not agree with it, but understand why on a big scale with all that money, where they're coming from and how they became those monsters, and understanding them as a bridge to solving something instead of fighting and what's happening.
Yeah, that's what's funny is like that's what I was thinking about when we were talking about stream hoppers, about how if you can project a reality to the microtubules, you can experience anything. And one of the things that made me think of that was, I was like, well, so when we finally understand the universe, what happens when everybody understands how it works and everybody can pretty much do whatever they can think of?
Sure.
Then I'm like, then you're going to have bad people doing bad things and good people doing, so there's going to be people who win and people who lose. But with stream hopping, everybody wins. If somebody wants to experience a morbid, dark reality or whatever, they can experience it without
bring that into their own reality and leave us alone.
Yes, everybody gets to experience, so you can be rich, you can be famous, you can be anything you want in a simulation that's the same as reality without affecting anybody else. And it's the only way that I could think of that everybody wins, even the bad guys, you know?
Yes. And I actually also talk about this in my book, and I'm talking way too much about my books. People need to read it. But I explain the reason that evil people get what they want, and sometimes even more and faster. Once again, they're just fearful people, but like you know, some of the worst things in history, I'll call them evil. Of course, they were horrible. I believe that those people, through sheer belief, people say, for instance, the argument is, okay, if it's plasma, if it's intelligent, why would it ever let that happen? Like, no. And this is what leads people to believe, who are atheists, that or like use black magic, that they can do whatever they want and there's no consequences because they've seen it in history. But the thing we have to remember is there's always consequences. People that are quick to rise or quick to fall, people that hurt a bunch of people, do not get off scot-free. And if they do in this life, they sure don't in lives to come.
Yeah, there's always a balance.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen it, especially now with things getting more conscious, like there's always a downfall. So like if you get that thing with darkness, you'll lose it fast and your life will suck. I'd rather get something than it take longer with goodness. But basically how you would call it with the quantum collapse or whatever, or coherence, like basically when you're using this for bad, it'll like cohere and decohere very fast because it's not in harmony with the benevolence of plasma. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And it can explain how evil people get what they want, but also how good people do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's so interesting. Like when you get into how it all works, how there's this weird, how we are the reflections. Everything is a reflection of entanglement, and we are the reflections of what we interact with. So if you're having 95% nasty interactions with everybody, 95% of all of your memories are going to be those type of memories, which means you're much more likely to be that way. Yeah. And when you surround yourself with that you love and that you're excited about and things like that, it reflects back, you know. That's the best way I can think of it. We are the reflections of what we interact with. Yeah, there we go.
It's true.
Thank you guys so much, by the way. We're watching your comments. I'm trying to write them down, but thank you guys for everything. They're all the don't.
I'm gonna say, okay, so like let's answer a few questions. I saw a question that I'm gonna answer, and I'm looking at my notes now about how to help solve addiction with plasma consciousness energy. If a few of you want to ask Jason questions while I'm looking that up, we're gonna kind of end the video in probably 10 to 20 minutes, just because I have to like eat dinner and stuff. And Jason has to live his life.
Okay.
But if you guys want to, Jason, feel free to look at the comments. If you guys have comments for Jason, he'll answer them. And I'm going to get you that question. I'm just looking into my notes.
Yeah, I love that's the thing I love the most, actually, is answering questions and talking to people and seeing what everybody, what the questions that everybody else wants to know. I'm interested in the same type of thing. Like, where do we come from? Where are we going? How did it all get there in the first place? Thank you, Gerald. So this shows that is the Earth real? So you know what? One thing that's funny about this, yes, it is. What it means is that the Earth is being projected from black holes that are the equivalent mass of the Earth. So everything that you see is the Earth is being projected from a whole bunch of small black holes that the mass of them summed together is the sum of the black hole. But technically, it's all this little interference pattern, and our brains are Fourier transforming that interference pattern into what we see.
Keep going. Wait.
Yeah, I'm trying to read some of these other ones.
There's probably a lot back in the comments.
I'm worried if I touch my phone, I'll somehow turn it off.
Right, well, feel free to ask other questions, guys, or just go on. I'm almost there. No, I have my notes. I'm coming, everyone.
Yeah, one thing, can we manifest stuff? Yeah, but what this means is that every history, and yes, 10 to the 10 to the 123rd is the number of possible histories, but can we manifest? This means that all possible histories are in the information field, which is this Hilbert space, which I call the singularity, but physicists will call it this Hilbert space. All possibilities are there. The possibility where I'm evil, where I'm Superman, every single possibility is there. And what we have to ask is, how can we manifest, or how can we find the path, the sum of the histories that gets me to where I want to be? Like some people call it a Akashic record, like somebody just typed.
Yeah.
Some people call it physics, information, plasma. And what's funny is this is the same thing. Like, as Dana and I have talked, the plasma literally contains slope, which is angular frequency or time dilation, which is information.
And
So
so it's basically plasma consciousness synergy, everyone, which is my
yes,
word that
yeah,
no one
but just different
understands.
words. Yet here you are saying it to me, and you're saying the same thing I am, and I think that's amazing.
Well, it's good
Mhm.
because now you can understand, like, when I do talk about it in my perspectives from like a psychological aspect, and I can understand yours from like a mathematical and logical aspect. So I think it's very useful. Um,
Yes.
okay, I wanted to, so what I have in my notes about addiction and plasma consciousness synergy, and as I said, like, what addiction, like, there's very high relapse rates when people come out of rehabs. I think it's like at 80%, like, medication is not cured addiction or is not known to, neither has psychedelics. Usually, like, someone can relapse within 5 to 10 years, but there are some awesome studies where, like, people do rewire their brains with psychedelics. The thing is, like, I think there's something beyond that, like with our own self mastery of like, or plasma consciousness synergy of like, how can we help addiction in new ways, bringing in the mystical. So what I'm going to talk more about this in my book, but I'll bring up, I don't know if I should bring this up right now. It's not just like a little thing to bring up. Basically, if one can agree that the missing thing with addiction is connection, which a lot of people have, and obviously I've had personal experience. I've been in rehab as well, like 3 different times. Plasma equals connection. And it is the divine feminine. It is what has been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years. It is the body. We have been talking heads for a very long time, living in the masculine, not demonizing that. They both should be in harmony.
Right.
Along with, like, you know, the divine child, which is like, me and Jason have plenty of that. Curiosity, play, fun, not scared to be wrong. Like, letting
Yes.
no.
It's okay to be wrong, and we're never going to bat 1,000%, but it's okay.
Yeah. Just like not focusing really on the outcome. It's just like experimenting and playing. And like those 3, the Trinity working together, is how one should live life, or at least like what I think. But if addiction is not just chemical and it's like an echo more of like trauma or like defunct thinking, changing your belief system and healing your past memories in the plasma consciousness information field is a big part of solving addiction, that I don't think we've dove into yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a blend of both. There's mental, there's a mental side to it, and then
Yeah.
there's a physical side to it. Because like when they put me on that pain medicine, when I had those surgeries, they give you the pain medicine and it makes you feel good for a moment.
Oh,
And
of course it does.
yeah, that's that side that is mentally addictive. That you're like, oh, that was fun. And but then your body goes through this physical withdrawal, and you combine those together. And if you combine it with somebody who has a lot of emotional scarring that wants to escape that, then it amplifies. It coherently amplifies the addiction to make it stronger. And what we have to do is find a way to decohere.
Decohere the addiction. Yeah.
Yes, just like emotions. If somebody's negative around you, be like water, like Bruce Lee says, and just let it flow and decohere with it, and it doesn't affect you. Even when we respond and say, "Oh, shut up, you jerk," we're giving them coherence. We're amplifying that negativity
because you're paying attention on it. You
Yes.
got to neutralize it, guys. And someone said a balance of EQ and IQ, which is totally divine, feminine, and masculine. I would also
I
add.
think of that. That sounds like the singularity and the event horizon.
And guess what? That's when it always is with 3s. And now I understand why Nikola Tesla was obsessed with 3s and pigeons, but really 3s. What we're also missing, which is what we have, is the divine child. It's that 3rd element. It's the information. It's the synergy of the 2. It's that 5th dimensional aspect.
The interference pattern of the 2, the reflection of the 2.
That's what like a lot of people miss. And like, yes, EQ and IQ, and EQ has been suppressed forever, but what has been even suppressed and ignored more than that. And you could call it the children of God. You could call it the children of 5D, simulated elves. I don't know, whatever you want to call us, humanity. Like, we forgot the PQ, the play quotient, the child, the information. It's like the game of life. It's like, just have fun. Like, when it really comes down to it, just like, it could really be simplified as like, just have fun.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
really, like, and maybe not literally, because obviously then your addiction would go crazy, right? So that's why there's a balance of the 3. It's not just have fun. Like, that would be a hedonistic life that would quickly get you to death.
Right.
There's
but
a
find the
balance.
blend in between that is just the right perfect,
Yeah.
the
It's the three.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's actually what everything is. Everything breaks down into these little triangles, and each triangle
Oh,
is
yes.
like actually every triangle is the number pi. Every straight line, which composes all the triangles that describe this entanglement,
Oh.
each straight line is 180 degrees. Each triangle, when you add up all three angles, is 180 degrees. And when you convert degrees into pi radians, you multiply the degrees by pi over 180. So anything that's 180 degrees is 180 times pi over 180, and 180 divided by 180 is 1. So everything that is exactly 180 degrees is exactly the number pi, or a straight line moving relative to a straight line, or information
But that
slash
would have to
time.
do with triangles or right angles in a circle or like almost circle. Or what does that have to do with exactly? Am I envisioning that?
Say it again.
Like when you talk about angular frequency, like what is the sacred geometrical? What is pi like look like?
So pi. I'm sorry, my phone too. I shouldn't have touched it. Now I can't
Wow.
see anything. I'm trying to figure out how to get the screen. Oh, there. Oh, there we go.
Does
Okay, I can see
pi
you
look
again.
like something or what?
Yeah. So I have a drawing of the number pi where I drew what it looked like, and I
Okay.
drawn it in stages. So what pi is describing is the circumference of a circle
Yeah.
divided by its diameter. But imagine we take a circle, which now we know isn't actually the
Yeah.
perfect circle, doesn't real, and we overlay big pixels on it.
Yeah.
But then we overlay smaller and smaller and smaller pixels. That's
Yes.
what pi's numbers, as they go out further and further, is describing is the resolution of the edge of the circle. It's circumference divided by its diameter. When you add
Okay, so
more
it's not
sides, it gets longer.
so it's not the like the angle like this, it's the arc.
Yeah. So those little angles like this are connecting from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. What we're really doing is we're inscribing polygons. Like we put a square in a circle.
Yeah.
And we say how far around is the circumference of that square divided by the diameter of the circle. And then we add and say we make 8 sides to the circle, or 8-sided polygons. Then we say what is that diameter divided by its I'm sorry, what's it? That circumference divided by its diameter. And as the number of sides gets larger, you get closer and closer to pi, but you never get to pi because you can always make the sides half their
Yeah.
size.
So but pi, just because like I'm completely blanking on what even pi is. Pi is the measurement you're saying of the arc or of the circumference.
The circumference of the circle
That's pi.
divided by its diameter.
Okay, so pi is the circumference of a circle
Divided by its diameter. But its
that would be the
circumference,
arc.
yes, and its
The
its
rainbow.
circumference depends on it is the rainbow. I've got a picture. In fact, I wish we had it. It's on my Facebook page.
Oh boy, that's the arc you've been talking about this entire time.
Yes, the when you look at I actually drew them
What
together,
if
and
Noah's arc has to do with pi?
it literally is the same thing. When you look at the
Googling.
double rainbow, like
Yeah.
if anybody is there, type in like just my name, rainbow, and the number pi on Facebook, and it'll pop up a drawing where I've drawn what pi looks like, and then on the bottom part of the drawing, I put the double rainbow, and that double rainbow, that band is called Alexander's band, and that band is the interference pattern that it forms on a singularity, or on the event horizon from the singularity. It's the same thing. So the rainbow is, when you're looking at the rainbow in real life, you're looking at a qubit and you're looking at the number pi.
You're looking at pi because I don't know about you, but Tom, the other guy that sees what he calls the organic metaverse or like upside vision, he sees rainbows as like circles or like
Yeah, they're very close. They're so close to circles that we can't tell, but technically if we were to magnify infinitely close, it would have little tiny straight lines around the edge.
but he sees them as like full things, not just the arc, which is we are human because we have like the horizon are seeing the arc.
Right.
But it's actually not just I put into oh my gosh, because this is what I do on TikTok. I put in ChatGPT, I was like, what if Noah's arc means pi? Like, what are the connections there? Because the arc, right? And it said, hold on, let me just read it. Let's see if this is worthy. This is one of my weird downloads where it starts to get crazy. So the arc's measurements, 300 by 50 by 30 cubits, may align with sacred mathematical ratios. Let me just go to the end of it. Both the arc, spiritual survival, and cosmic order, which is pi,
point to hidden mathematical and metaphysical structures governing life. In your plasma framework, this could symbolize the bridge between dimensions. Plasma equals the arc between worlds, cycles of time and consciousness expansion, and the hidden mathematical order to shaping reality's fluid nature. The Noah's Ark is not just a boat, it's a metaphor for the cosmic structure that preserves knowledge, consciousness, and flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what's funny is like when you plug something into it, I can hear how it's trying to like make it all make sense, and most of it does. Like the part about like Noah's Ark actually doing it, that's
no, not actually doing
yeah.
it. I think
but it's describing the
arc.
Yes, it's describing the word arc as time dilation, which is plasma. Time dilation is the arc of the plasma.
No, basically because this is the way like my brain works. Noah's Ark, like forget about the actual boat in the ocean. Like it symbolizes spiritual survival. So it's similar to cosmic order. So it has to do with like the structure of reality. It's definitely a reach, but anyway, I just thought it was fun.
Yeah, it's
not worthy of a TikTok.
And what's weird is like no matter what exists in the universe, whether it's the Bible or a movie that we're watching or something in reality, all of it we can describe with this lithographic projection on the event horizon. So no matter what it is still able to be described by information and plasma, no matter what it is. If we can imagine it, it's a configuration of the screen, which means it's an actual reality. And that's the other thing that's weird about this is all the realities that we don't perceive, they're all necessary to create the reality that does.
This reality.
So all the bad universes, even though they suck, they're necessary.
I know. I actually had that revelation too, which is like very hard to explain to almost anyone because they're like, what? Like this thing in history is so wrong. What do you mean? And I'm like, completely not fair and disgusting. But for some reason, like everything that happens is necessary. Not meaning it should happen.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's like, it's just some weird, it's the like, I talk about this. It's like the life is a bitch thing. It's like, not everything's fair.
Yes.
I don't know. And I don't know that cosmic order. And no one is deserving of, some of these horrible things, but we don't fuck it.
But when we look at it just from like a physics or from a mathematical standpoint, since what we experience as reality is all the probabilities from the singularity, they're all there, and they all ripple outward like waves in the ocean. And right at the event horizon, the sum of all of their histories combine to make a new wave. And that wave is what actually happens in reality. And Richard Feynman came up with that. It's called the sum over histories, where they sum all histories, and then that tells you what actually happens. And what my theory here shows is that Richard Feynman's sum over histories, where the action, he calls it the action defines the path. Yeah. And what I have here is showing that the action that he describes is the phase and the frequencies of the spinning quantum states. So everything that happens is a sum of all the histories, how they're weighted and phased, and the interference pattern that happens on the screen. But what it means is that all what happens in our reality is dependent on the realities that we don't see.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, it makes complete. Okay, I want you end with your own statement. I want to end with one more question, and feel free to answer this too. I think this is why I do what I do. Wizard Big Marcus asked, why does it feel like I'm still alone, even though I found likewise others, even though he's found, other people. So Jason, feel free to speak on this.
Yeah. So I've felt that way at times, like when I first got this brain injury happened, and I remember just thinking, God, if I just died, nobody would notice. And we all definitely have those, but you're not alone. There are people that do care, and we're all together in the singularity. We are all actually we are all projections of the same thing. So we feel separate in our projected states, but every single thing in the universe, if this proves to be true, is together in the singularity, and we only feel separate when our microtubules Fourier transform those frequencies into a holographic image.
So separation is an illusion, like all philosophies say, and then my angle on it from someone who feels alone a lot of the time, I read a quote that actually really upset me at first. And it said, if you feel lonely when you're alone, you're not in good company. And I was like, crap, I don't like myself. So like, I'm not accusing you of that, Wizard Big Marcus, but I've had to face the reality that there were parts of myself I hated. There were parts of myself that I had shame and embarrassment. And like when I was alone, those parts would get so loud. And all my insecurities, all of my it was like that and a mixture, I'm sure, because I was adopted. I'm sure there was a subconscious programming I gave myself of like anytime I was alone, I associated alone with abandonment or like not getting validation. So like once again, if you feel alone, it's just a pointer that there's more work to be done on yourself. But if you can hang on to the fact, like logically, you know you're not alone, the feeling will follow. It just takes time. It's being heart-centered. It's learning to truly love yourself. And that is a journey that we are all on, you know, because I could be in a crowd of people and I feel very alone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It is amazing how all of that is a perception, and how sometimes what seems like the worst times in life, like I don't ever want to go back to that feeling that I had, you know, and the dark times that happened right after I had this brain injury. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, boy, they were all necessary. I wouldn't be where I am without them, even though it really sucked going through those bad points.
Same. And it still does. And every time after they're done, I'm like, oh my God, I totally get it. It's so grateful. But during
when you're in the bad time, it sucks.
I know. And my confession, I told my friend this the other day, like smoking is horrible for you. And like, because I don't drink or do drugs, like when I'm feeling that really bad tension, like the worst thing I'll do is smoke a cigar. And that's how I know that like I need to face something, because it's like I know that's not healthy for me. So like we're all working on ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And that's one thing that I found too, is whenever we have a behavior, it makes a neural pathway in our brain, like water making a riverbed.
Okay.
Then you break the habit, but it takes 30 days to like dam up that neural pathway. Hello, puppy.
Say hi, Danny.
Hello. Can you bark for us?
Danica. She'll bark. Are you ready? Danica, who's outside? Who's there?
Yeah, she said he's in plasma.
Okay, enough. Sorry, go ahead. Say your closing statement.
Well, it's okay. I can't remember what I was saying now. It doesn't matter.
Sorry. Anyone, do you guys know what he was saying? Help.
Yeah.
It is really hurting, but at least I have something to compare it with something else. Yes, it really can hurt sometimes. I think what Jason was saying was something about how it really can hurt, but he's also grateful for those times.
Yeah. So going through those bad times.
Neural pathways.
What now?
They're saying
neural pathways. Thank you. Neural pathways.
Thank you.
So neural pathways are like a riverbed. Water goes down and like gravity, it's the same thing. And they make this little path that the river is now following. And now we break the habit and we dam up that neural pathway, and now it's a dry riverbed. But as soon as you break the dam and the water flows, the riverbed's still there, and now you got to go through breaking the whole habit again. And that's why when you're in some sort of addiction and you give into it, then suddenly it's like starting all over from the beginning again almost, because you just broke the dam, but the pathway was already there.
Wait, okay, so let me ask that with my little addiction to mini cigars when I get stressed. Like, if I do it for less than 30 days and then I stop for like a year, will that not create the same pathway? Or does even doing it once create that pathway and I have to do all the work to unlearn it?
I don't think you have to do all the work, but I think the pathway is always there. And that's one thing I've noticed a lot of times, like with even like when I have had to come off that medicine from the surgeries and seeing people that are friends of mine that I've seen that with addictions to alcohol or pain medicines or whatever, it's that one moment breaks the dam, but the riverbed slowly does fill up, but it takes a long time. And so the longer that you go without breaking it, the better. But a lot of times breaking it one time, that's why when people relapse, it's really just I think of it as breaking the neural dam that then allows the behavior to flow down the channel.
It's true, because when I used to do drugs and I would relapse in my early 20s and teenage years, every time I'd relapse, it would get worse right away. And I'd be like, what, already? Like that quick? Because it was right there. I went right back to the bottom and I was like, oh my God. Like, because so that you're explaining why that's so weird and like why.
Yeah. And then we all blame ourselves. We're all like, gee, I'm weak or I'm this. And really It's not like that.
It's my freaking information pathways.
Yes, yes,
Oh
yes,
my
and the
God.
pathways that it is literally a neural net, just like the universe. It's amazing. No matter what we do, we always come back to it's
So
neurons or it's
So
microtubules.
basically, like our own little rivers that we've created for ourselves, they are always there. So we have to make a conscious choice not to dive into those. Is that what you're saying? They can never be filled with what your concept is?
Yeah, once we or they could eventually, I guess, but when
Okay.
we get one behavior that is ingrained in
Right.
our microtubules or our neural pathways,
Takes a long time.
it takes a long time for that riverbed. Like a riverbed takes millions of years to fill up with dust and all that time stuff till it's not a riverbed anymore. And so the
Okay.
longer we stay away from it,
The better.
the better.
Okay, okay. Well, after this week, I'm done smoking cigars. I'm just putting it out there. If you guys see this ever happening to me, please call me out and say, Dana, you're not practicing what you preach. Okay, hearing this, Michael said, okay, I'll read a few more and then we got to go. Hearing
Oh
this
yeah,
convo, Michael says, hearing this convo makes me feel less alone. Oh, that's my purpose. Thank
good,
you
good, because
guys.
you're not. We're all together in the singularity. Right now,
Oh,
you're next to us. We're all shaking hands, but we just feel separate.
oh, and he says, no one, I've never heard anyone else talk like this. Someone said Rob said Sims game is actually real. Yes, and oh
Oh,
my God, Jason, talk about the Sims, guys.
yeah,
We
yeah.
have
So I
some
can't say
crazy news
exactly
about the
who, but
Sims.
one of the major producers of The Sims contacted me recently, and we've been talking about
Because
how
he
to
saw what?
because he saw Dana. By the way, Dana's podcast, like it was liked by I think Sharon Stone liked it. I saw it looked like Sharon Stone, and it's
Or
very,
one of my reels. Yeah, one of my
yeah,
reels.
yeah. Like I sorry, yeah. All
I'm a huge
sorts of
fan of
people
her.
see. Yeah, so you did a podcast where
Yeah,
you mentioned what happened, and this I normally don't ever walk around and get recognized very often at all.
not
Yeah.
yet.
But when you did your podcast, like yesterday, it happened 4 times yesterday where somebody said, I saw you on that podcast. And I was like, what podcast? And like, the girl with blonde hair. And I was like, Dana? And she was like, yes, 4 times in one day. So I think you have a lot of reach.
Oh my God, I
And
want to
that's
get.
out here in
I don't get
Carmel,
recognized.
Indiana.
What?
Yeah, that's out here in Carmel. We went into my daughter has tennis lessons.
Yeah.
And as I walked in, there was this group of wives that were looking at their phone, and we came in and they turned it around and they were watching you on the podcast describing my stuff.
Wait,
And then they asked my daughter, is this your dad? And then they started asking about black holes, and I was just like, it was really cool to see like the effect of your social media and how I think you have a lot more fans than you know.
don't know because I'm here in a retirement community right now,
Right.
living with my mom, where everyone's over 70 and no one knows who I am because no one has social media. And I think
Right.
that's good. I think that actually is keeping me in a very nice bubble while I finish my
Yeah.
book. Because I think if I maybe knew that and saw that, I'd feel more like pressure or anxiety maybe to like really perform.
Right.
But whatever. I mean, that'll happen.
Just
I'm
be
sure.
you.
Just
You
be
you
me.
by yourself are perfect.
Thanks. Someone
Yeah.
said partly sunny chance of shade. Said Jason, you're from Carmel, Indianapolis, native here.
Oh, nice. So I found Carmel. So they did the local the Fox News in Indianapolis just did a story on it because when we found Carmel, Indiana, the reason how we moved here is I was born in Alaska and we went to Seattle and I got mugged there and my dad got mugged. Everybody that I know just about got mugged or robbed. And so we wrote a program and put everything in a city that we wanted, like where is it safe, where is it affordable, where do kids graduate with the highest test scores, and no matter what we put in, Carmel, Indiana, and about 15 miles around it, kept on coming up like number 1 to number 5 in the whole country. And so I got a house here in Carmel over my phone, had a real estate agent walk through the house,
Wow.
and then just bought the house over the phone, and then had never been to Indiana. And we just flew here sight unseen, and it's been the best move ever. I love this area. I never thought I would wind up in the Midwest, but it's beautiful. And Carmel is like, it's like something out of a movie. You know, it's beautiful.
So, speaking of that amazing story that has to do with destiny, I will do a segue and back into The Sims. Speaking of houses, because we got off topic,
Right?
what happened when the creators of The Sims saw my video, and what did they say to you?
Oh, it was like they were saying basically. I'm trying to remember all of it. Like it was a long conversation. We talked for like 2 hours on the phone.
But you got to talk to them. They reached out to you.
Yeah. So we had a conversation. We had a Zoom call, and we've had two of them now, where we went over
That's
like
my
this.
favorite game.
Yeah. Everybody, we were talking about how with
The
stream
Sims.
hopping, huh?
Sorry, I was going to say The Sims. If you're watching this, do a brand deal with me when Sims 5 comes out, please.
Yeah.
I
We
never
were
accept
literally
money
talking
for
about.
brand deals because I never resonate with anything. So please.
Yes, it's like the people who are building those programs, they're seeing the same thing. They're seeing that we can describe all of this
Yeah.
it with zeros and ones, and what this is showing is that we can describe it with a superposition of zeros and ones, where each little piece of the hologram contains the probability that each little piece is a zero or a one, and so it's how the simulation, which is us, or the plasma, is code.
So what you're talking to them maybe about is Gaussian splatting for Sims 5.
Yes, so Gaussian splatting is how you shoot photons at, like, imagine we shoot light at me and the light bounces and makes this little shadow of me on the wall, which is a two-dimensional shadow called Gaussian splatting. We can take that shadow and reconstruct the four-dimensional or three-dimensional information that is me from that shadow. So the new video games that are coming out, the video game writes itself and renders itself at the same time. So you don't have to plug in anything to run the Sims. Like before, you would buy a little video tape and plug it in and play the game, or a CD.
Uh-huh.
In this, it runs the code and executes it at the same time. So the video game is being rendered as a new video game as you're playing it.
Oh, you just made me. They're definitely then going to be doing, what is it called? A multiplayer, multi-world, like World of Warcraft. I bet you they're going to do that when we're all in the same sim fucking village.
That's what reality is right now. That's what reality is. We're all together in the singularity.
So they're going to bring that in.
But we're all together in the same simulation.
So that's what they're missing in Sims, which I'm sure they know. And I'm sure it's so funny. Someone just said new game is basically plasma Sims. The funniest thing about the Sims, and I wanted to bring this up to you about to tell them if you see them again, is like they must know about the plasma, because in The Sims 4, the vampires drink plasma.
Wow.
To get better. They eat like plasma fruit and plasma trees. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, plasma.
Right.
Obviously, it has to do with blood plasma, but still it's
right. I know what you're saying. Like, I find a way to relate everything to black holes and holograms.
Yeah.
And for you, it's plasma, but we're just kind of describing the same process, but in our own flavor.
I know. And I mean, I'll even say it out loud. Like sometimes I'm like, is it though? Like, but am I okay? But then I like, no, it like is. But like, once again, I have to be astutely aware. I mean, yes, maybe actually plasma though, because of science. Like maybe I'm actually not like as correct as I think, but like it is my perspective. But at the same time, like I really think I'm onto something, because I actually think it is plasma. And
I do too. I think it's Quark-Gluon plasma. It's a perfect plasma that spins forever. It doesn't have any friction, and that Quark-Gluon plasma that forms the event horizon, it comes from superposition. So the universe is going from moment to moment, but in between those picture frames, everything exists in superposition, where it's all states. And one of the possible states is having two photons of opposite spin on one Planck area. That collapses into a black hole, which then emits Hawking radiation, which is the imprint.
Yes.
So, or the plasma. The imprint, the Hawking radiation is the plasma, but it's created from not being able to make perfect measurements, or from uncertainty between the picture frames. When particles exist in superposition, they collapse into entangled black holes, which then emit Hawking radiation, which then goes to the next picture frame, which then repeats the process. So black holes form, they emit the hologram, and then it goes to the next Planck time where the black holes form again. They evaporate and print the hologram over and over and over. And it makes a sequence of the sum over histories of these projections that then describe our reality. But eventually all the projections happen over and over again.
Yes. Someone asked another good question. I'll go for 10 more minutes just because this is a really good one. What do you think of the movie Interstellar?
So I like Interstellar. So this is showing that same recursive process where like he's in the black hole and he eventually comes around and sees the beginning. Well, so light can go around a black hole completely. It can be lensed around it. And so you could see yourself coming before you get there because all of those states actually exist. They're past, future, and present are illusions. They all moments exist in the singularity, but only when they are projected do we see this relativistic effects. In other words, the universe is non-local. Everything is in the singularity is moving at the speed of light, so it all is emitted and observed at the exact same time. There is no definition of then or now. It just all happens simultaneously, and that's called non-locality. How one thing in the universe, how it suddenly, other part of the universe knows instantly what's going on. But when you project that onto the surface of the black hole, the event horizon, then it makes everything feel non-local because it's being projected across this large space. But
And
technically,
that-
in the singularity, it's all non-local, and on the projection is local, but or appears local, but it's really all non-local.
And I would call that, by the way, in Star Wars, there's the cosmic force or the field, and then the living force. I think it's two aspects of the same plasma, of the same thing, where it's like the singularity or like the entire field or projection, or I don't know, whatever, the deeper force. And then there's like the living force is what Jason was just talking about. I lost my analogy.
Yeah, that's all right. I you know what? Star Wars is my favorite movie ever. I love, and they spend a lot of time thinking about it because when they're talking about the dark side, that's what they're talking about. Like Anakin Skywalker fall into the dark side. He is the reflections of what came into him and slowly changed him into what he became. And the light side, as they say, like Yoda, like him when he says luminous beings, or we, that we are luminous beings, and we are information, and plasma, which is the same thing. And you can tell even in movies, we all see this relationship between the singularity and the event horizon because everything is made of it. So everything is following this recursive relationship.
No, it's insane. I was going to say my book, A New Force, is literally named after Star Wars. So like my whole introduction is about comparing plasma and the force, and what you would call information to like plasma, consciousness, synergy to the force. Anyway, it's all. Someone asked, I don't know the answer to this. So do you think tachyons are real?
I haven't gone a lot into them.
I haven't either yet.
I would like to go more into that and see. Yeah, I do think they're real. I think not only is everything that we describe in physics is real, but what's even weirder is the exact reverse of that is the singularity. Or the inverted projection of that is the singularity. So for every like electron that's in our universe, there's a positron that is the exact opposite of it in the singularity. So every particle has a mirror image in the singularity, including us. So in fact, we are, according to this, those particles themselves are just the Fourier transformed version of the angular frequencies of those particles in the singularity.
That's crazy.
Isn't that weird? Somehow you and I, we're just little spinning bits of light, like all squished together, yet my brain is showing me you and this phone in this room, yet technically it's all just squiggles of light.
I know that I always think of that, and I'm like, oh my God, my brain. Someone said, Michael said, and our emotion is how we harness the force to shift timelines. Very smart. That's what I think as well. And then someone said perspectives on, well, before I get to that, because I know you're going to answer this, someone else said, I just watched The Dark Crystal again. At the ending, they had to combine light and dark to become ascended 1,000,000%. That's basically what me and Jason have been saying about like our life. And then Jason, someone said, what is your perspective on scalar grids and morphogenetic fields? That's like a Rupert Sheldrake thing. Do you know anything about those things or no?
I don't. I know about like scaling. The scalar fields. So there's something called de Moivre's theorem, and it's basically just, this is kind of, it's like it's a inverted or a Fourier transformed de Moivre's theorem. It's just showing how everything in the singularity is directly mapped one-to-one, but just larger on the event horizon. So if you could look at the singularity and magnify it, it is the exact same thing, just a reflection of what's happening in our universe. So whatever it is that's happening in reality around us, you just reverse that process and that's what's happening in the singularity.
Okay, so and what I would say is that scalar waves are plasma waves. So that's like my thought. Like, and when I say plasma waves, I mean like the metaphysical plasma waves that aren't provable in science. And then morphogenetic fields. When Rupert Sheldrake talks about the morphogenic field, I think he's literally talking about the same thing as Jason calls information or plasma having to do with Hawking radiation, like that. What I call the plasma field, what Jason calls the field of information, is the morphogenetic field. So once again, we're all saying the same thing in different ways, and each of our perspectives like unlock like another puzzle to reality.
And that's one thing I found AI is really good at. AI is good at being a translator between people who have like savant, like that was one of the things that helped me. Like when I would talk to a physicist, sometimes we were like right in sync and we're getting all excited, and then they would say something that I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And I could see that they were looking at me like, what is he talking about? And then eventually it was because at certain points I started describing physics in terms of angular frequencies.
Yeah.
But physics in the standard model is describing the integral projection of those derivatives from the singularity of those little angular frequencies.
Yeah.
And so we get to a point where they're describing the projection on the event horizon, but I'm describing the information that is equivalent to the projection. And so suddenly it would seem like we were talking about different things, but we weren't. It was the same thing. So.
I've had that experience too. And I think we had that experience with each other at first. I think at first we were both like, I mean, I was understanding what you were saying, but I mean, it took some time. But it took more time to realize that we were talking about the same thing.
Me too. Like when we first met and you started talking about plasma, I was thinking of
no one gets it at first.
Right. And I was like, what's she talking about? But then as we started, but I could tell that you were smart. And so I'm like, she's saying, I know what she's, and having my experience of me seeing things. Like when I came in with a drawing of pi and I showed I didn't even have algebra 1 at the time. And I showed my professors, this is the number pi. I thought they would recognize it and say, oh, this is y. And they looked at it and they had no clue what I was talking about. And I was embarrassed.
That's how I feel like when I talk about it, I think because I see the world this way, everyone will get it automatically.
Yes.
And that's why it's taken me 4 years to write my book, because I got to bridge it. I got to bridge it to something normal, like you probably had to do with your math.
Yes, it took me a year of math classes at college level until I got to like calculus 3 that I was able to write the equations and then present the equations to my professors with the drawing, and then every single one of them understood, but they could only understand when I wrote it in a calculus equation. They couldn't understand it by looking at the drawing. It was wild. But artists would look at the drawing, and artists understood the drawing, but they didn't understand the equation. But it was the same thing.
Because they'll get the emotion of it. And that's what I think, at least with me, like I know people will understand my book on a instinctual knowing level, because that's how my knowledge works. But some people who work just in math and science are going to be at contention, have a point of contention with me. And like my I think my next step in life is to learn, and I know there's a way, how to translate this into what you like. Same thing as you. It's just the journey. And
maybe we can do this soon. Like I might be going out. So I just talked to I wrote my autobiography a few years ago, and it was optioned to be made into a major motion picture.
Yes.
And so I just talked to the movie guys like literally like 30 minutes before we had this call.
And you're just telling me now?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have led with it. But they're just now finishing up. I can't even remember what they call it. Like when
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's like the deck and all these ways. Anyway, they're going to start taking it to producers or directors and try to get a director here. And so we're going to be able to have a movie here real soon where we're going to be showing in the movie how this works. I'm trying to remember why I was even going there to begin with. Anyway,
you'll be able to help me with the math part, maybe, or like explain it on a more fundamental level that scientists and math will understand my plasma stuff. I don't know.
They're gonna. I can't remember some of it for sure. Like we're gonna be able to visually show it, but I'm trying to remember why I was the book. Oh well, it'll come back to me in a second.
Either way, that's really exciting. I mean, yeah, and it's so. I wish like, no, that's not true actually.
Never mind.
That's
I
what
was
it
going
is.
to say
I'll be coming out there, and we could actually perhaps do something when I come out there, because they just asked me, could I fly out to LA to meet with some of these movie directors? And,
oh my God, that'll be so fun. Well, I'm
yeah,
in Florida right now,
yes.
so I'm going to
Well,
miss out.
and the Sims, the people that I talked to from the Sims, they're also in LA, and they were just
I'm
asking me.
going.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, whenever Dana's there and you guys are there, we'll all have to go at the
Say
same
I'm a
time.
creative partner and I must meet the Sims.
Yes, yes.
Directors and movie producers, I don't have to meet. I've already been in that realm, whatever. But I really want to meet the Sims.
Yeah, yeah, they were really and they were fun guys to talk to also.
Oh my
Like
God.
they just naturally think that way because they've coded their own world. Even though it's from the Sims, it's the same process now.
Let
It's just
Dana,
another.
someone said let Dana direct it. So I was, sorry, Jason,
Yeah.
I interrupted you. So Mom, I'm on TikTok. This is what I love with your mom. Joel Rusher said, let Dana direct it. I was going to say that, and then I shushed myself because I actually would have definitely begged Jason to already meet with his producers because I feel comfortable asking Jason that, but I don't feel like I have the right vision or time for directing something like that because I'm literally working on my book. But I know that Jason, like this production company Jason's working with, is huge. They've done big movies, and let's not say what because they're going to want to do their own press release eventually about your stuff. So I'm sure we don't want to give away too much, but they're gonna get like the perfect director for this. But I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like, I totally would have asked him if I thought I was the right person, but like I'm not.
Yeah, but, well, you should be. Maybe it'll be.
Maybe eventually, like, like I
Yeah.
do want to direct stuff in the future, but like in the most kindest way. I want to direct my own stories.
Right. Right.
Me and Jason like our own work.
Right.
We
We
like
need to
doing
make
our
our
own
own
work.
movie. Yes.
Maybe if it's something combined, but like I'm very bad at shepherding someone's idea and like I would have so much trouble not making it about plasma. And the thing is, it's not about plasma. Like this
Right.
is your perspective. So like you need a director who is completely objective.
And you know what's funny is when I was talking to them, like you have a hard time not making it about plasma, and as no matter as we were talking about the movie, I kept on telling them how black holes are working, how they work, and they're like, Jason, the movie is about
Shut up.
how you got to where you are. It's not about how black holes work. And I'm like, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, they're focused more on the story, which will be great though. That will
Right.
actually get you a platform to talk about all this stuff. And funny enough, like someone told me that they were like, Dana, no one even knows your story, and it's actually even more interesting than your plasma stuff. Like I think you really have a story with like your life. And I was like, yeah, but like you're at a place where I feel like you've earned it. Like maybe when I'm 50, I would love to have my life story out there, but like I just am not there right now. And like I have a lot more to learn, I feel like, and we always have stuff to learn, but like maybe I'll do that soon. Like maybe I'll write that, maybe a book, a memoir first, but like I'm not there yet. But it's so exciting that you're doing that because I think that's really what will connect people with you.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to come out. I'm just excited to see what it looks like at the end, and then hopefully have a documentary where at some point we have an actual science documentary. I mean, I'm making a lot of these like short documentaries myself, but in the near future we've been talking with people at Netflix and Prime Video about potentially making an actual scientific documentary where we show step by step how this works. And right now we're kind of at this point where we're trying to get more support in the academia world because the academia world's kind of broken right now.
Well, they need that to get funding for those documentaries, but you will.
Yeah.
Your time will come for that. Just like I'm manifesting this, but I know someone will buy my IP, which I own, and I know A New Force will be a documentary. And it's easy for that one because it kind of is more speculative and like more like psychological. So like I don't need the academic support, I guess, but like I know that will happen for you, and I think it'll happen pretty quick.
Yeah, I keep feeling it too. I think I can see it on the horizon, and the fact that we have this real empirical evidence now where we can predict fundamental particle properties and time dilation and match it to actual empirical data is now giving this like real legs to stand on finally.
I'm so excited for the next 5 years. Thanks for being my friend. I can't wait until I think our community will grow. I think we're collecting really interesting people. I can't wait till at least maybe you can already afford this, but like in a year or two, once my book sells, I can afford to like fly all over and like have meetings with all of you guys and like all like have some kind of thing where we all come together, like and like have a think tank.
Yeah, that'd be a
Like,
great. That'd be fun.
and that will happen, and I know, and like also community events where we can invite people like you guys to, you know, talk to us in like a real way, because like I've been to those events, and no hate on them, but like events where people just speak at the table and then they don't talk to like any of the community, and like I know it's impossible to talk to everyone, and I get that, but like as a fan of other people, like I want to figure out a way where we can at least dialogue in a way which doesn't deplete us, but also like energizes us in the audience. And I know there's a better way to like have more intimate connections with, you know, our viewers. So we have to figure it out.
And I enjoy it. What's funny is like, so sometimes I'll meet somebody and they'll start talking to me, and then before we know it, it's reversed to where they're like, okay, that's enough, and I can't stop talking about it.
Same. And I think that's what's awesome though, is like I've met people who like don't like, I'm not saying we have fans, I'm not saying that it's a community, because
Right.
I think all these people are just like us and that's why they resonate with us. But it's like I've heard people like say, oh, I hate talking to people. I'm like, then don't do this, because like this is what's so special and beautiful about it, is like all of us resonating with each other.
Yes, and doing what you love, like you love it and I love it, and it makes life. Doing what you love, what better dream is there than to do what you love, you know?
Yeah. 1,000,000%. All right, I got to get off. I need
Right.
some water.
Me too.
I need to have water next to me, because this had water, now it had none, and this whole time.
Totally.
Well,
I've been like milking this grape juice
Yeah.
for an hour
Let
or
me.
two.
You have to meet my mom, because I showed her your history channel thing yesterday.
Oh yeah,
she's
I was just on the
in
History
person.
Channel yesterday. If you guys look at on the History Channel on YouTube, it was
Ancient
just dropped
Aliens.
yesterday. Yeah, Ancient Aliens.
Mom? Hold on, maybe she's. You're in the what? She's in the bathroom.
Yeah, make sure you.
Okay, I was gonna say you can meet Jason, but it'll be another time, I guess. She's in her bedroom right now.
Right.
I wanted everyone to see her. All right, well, Jason, before we go, let's just shout out where people can get more of us. So for me, it's my YouTube at Plasma Intelligence. My Instagram is at Dana.thealien. And most importantly, if you go to my Stamp store, the link in my bio and my TikTok, you can get the sign up for my book. All you need to know, I'm fundraising. I'm giving out signed books and private Zooms right now. So if you're interested in that, that's going on for only 3 more days. How about you, Jason?
I should know I know I'm on YouTube, Instagram.
What episode number is your show?
Oh, I think it's this one. So I did a couple episodes of Ancient Aliens. This one I think is episode 9, season 9, episode 3 or 4.
Here, I got it right here. Season 9, episode 4. It is Ancient Aliens, Possessed Geniuses or Masterminds. I love that.
Yeah, that one just dropped yesterday on the History Channel, and then I also did one with William Shatner. He's this guy from Star Trek.
Oh my! I know who that is.
Yeah. So I did what's it called?
You're so much more humble than me. I would be bragging like crazy about
I still can't believe it. I did one with Morgan Freeman also.
I'm obsessed with Morgan Freeman. I was bragging about this all day.
Yeah, I did Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman a few years ago, and so he
gotta show me that.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, please just say my name. I said, just to have Morgan Freeman say, Jason Padgett did such and such, and he did. So even though it wasn't seen by a lot of people, it was called The Genius Factor, and it was Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, and then William Shatner was The Unknown. That's what it was called, The Unknown.
Okay. Hold on, before you shout out your stuff. Before you shout out your stuff, I want to say my mom wants to say hello.
Hi. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
That's Jason.
Nice to meet you. Yes, I know.
That's Albert Einstein.
I know, the 2 Einsteins.
She thinks we're both Einsteins, so I'll take it.
Yes, I think Dana is too.
Yes, she wants to watch the rest of our show. We're getting off now, and then we'll watch our show.
All right. Give your puppy a pet for me too.
Where can everyone find your stuff, though?
Sorry. On right now, Facebook, which is weird. I know it's kind of like a different platform, but Facebook is kind of what's been taken off lately. But I post all my videos on my Facebook page, which is just Jason Padgett. And then
Padgett.
yeah, Padgett. And then I also have a YouTube channel and TikTok and Instagram. But I found that like TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook are the easiest things to post my videos on. And Facebook, I can also put I can put an explanation with equations. So whichever platform you prefer. Facebook, I'm on a lot, but YouTube and TikTok, I'm posting all the videos that I create there also.
Sorry, I just ruined that. So guys, Jason also forgot to mention he sells amazing artwork of how he sees reality. Where are those links? Where's the link to your website and stuff?
So they're on Fine Art America. If you just type my name, Jason Padgett, Fine Art America, it'll pop it up. And they're also on sale at this store in Carmel, Indiana called Art on Main. They're in the Main arts districts in Carmel, Indiana, and they have my originals and prints featured this month. And tomorrow's Pi Day.
I know.
Yeah, so
I know. I wish I could post this then, but it's going to take me longer than that to like download it on my computer.
Right. What? And you know, it's also Einstein's birthday. Pi Day is Einstein's birthday.
Oh, that's my brother's birthday too. That's so cool.
That's cool.
I have I'm obsessed with Einstein. I have a picture of him, and I have this quote tattooed on me: "Imagination will take you everywhere. Its logic will take you from point A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere." But I feel like I sometimes can channel him and Nikola Tesla and me have parties in my mind.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I really feel like their spirit. Sometimes it's really funny, and I don't think it's just me. I think they come to, obviously many people. But okay, so, and I will say, anyone watching this not live on YouTube, Jason's and my links will be in the in the description, so you can check it out there. Jason, thank you so much. Let's do this in 2 weeks. Sorry about my hiatus. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you guys too. We enjoy it, and we'll talk to you guys soon. And hopefully Dana and I will have a new one, and we'll have something extra special in the near future.
Maybe we'll have some great news. Who knows? But yeah, so anyway, that's really it. Goodbye. All right, Jason, I'll talk to you later.
See you guys later.
Bye, guys. Thank you all.